Commission and building site design standards to see something that's compatible and also kind of fits with the need that we feel moving forward is appropriate for Nampa. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions at this time? And I know you know the process, so we will be back with any questions to let you wrap.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, staff report. Norm.
Okay, you have on the overhead, it's been, the requested action is, as has been stated, the southerly 7 acres annexed in Zone BC, the northerly acreage of 26.13 would be zoned light industrial. And they want to connect to the city services for a business/industrial park type uses to occur there. The Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended approval of this. Let's see. No, I won't. No, mine's froze up. Sorry about that. Crazy. Well, that's working now. Okay. So that shows the location, as we mentioned, and the property. Surrounding land uses to the north, we have agricultural and rural residential, county ag zone property. South, of course, is St. Luke's Medical Center, HC zone. East, agricultural, county ag, agricultural, and to the west, some rural residential properties along the boulevard there. We have the links in your staff report for the land uses that are allowed in the BC and in the IL zones, as well as the signs. I won't go through those, but council can click on those links in their document and go to those online. Existing business park and light industrial is what's shown on the comp plan as presently exists. This line right here is the line between light industrial and business park on the current comp plan. The proposed is community mixed use, changing this business park designation to community mixed use. The uses proposed there, business park type uses, are allowed in either comprehensive plan designation, so there's no conflict in what's being proposed on the comp plan amendment versus what exists presently. Zoning, again, the healthcare zoning, here where the hospital is located. We have BC zoning across the street from the hospital. We have some BC zoning to the west, and the industrial zoning that is being proposed would be, again, the northerly piece of this property. And this map, you can't clearly see that zoning because it's not, some of that area isn't zoned yet. It's comp plan, but it's all comp plan industrial, and you'll see that on this map, actually. The area surrounded, actually, this is the utilities, excuse me. I think I got the comp plan here somewhere. Let me look back here. Yeah, the comp plan. So all of that area to the north and to the east designated as industrial on the comp plan presently and in future. So it does conform with the comp plan in that regard. The utilities are shown there, served from the south. There's the aerial view of the property, frontal view of the street. I forget which street location this is exactly. I think it's actually on the southerly street there, along Cherry Lane, yes. And engineering condition has a number of conditions related to this. I won't go into these. If you have any questions on these are outlined in the staff report, somewhat in detail here as well. And 2 pages worth. Actually, 3 pages worth. Recommended findings we have listed there that the council consider concerning approval of this development. And basically, it states what we've already stated in terms of conformance with the applicable ordinances and plans of the city. And that's basically the action. There was at the Planning and Zoning Commission some discussion regarding this little strip here. And it appears to me as though this is actually an ownership that goes out to there. There's some discussion of an easement. And whether there was right to access Midland from that location raised by one of the northerly property owners. And it was explained and verified at the hearing at the commission that those were, within the ownership record of the property, that they do have that access through there. And so that becomes I guess, somewhat of a private matter if there's questioning that exists. The documents are there that establish that, and perhaps Mr. Hatch could explain that further if that point's brought up. My understanding in talking with him today that discussion was had with that property owner to north, and pretty much they figured out and understood what was happening there. So, any questions?
Mayor Kling,
Yes.
can you speak to the sewer, or would that be Daniel?
I would have Daniel cover that discussion.
Okay, I have a question as far as in regard to the sewer.
Yeah, there was a statement there about this wastewater stuff. I think this is it.
Right, there's a conflict as far as in what I'm reading from item 2, what you don't have bullet points up there, where it talks about the on-site wells and septic systems being abandoned. And then when you go down to 10, it talks about engineering would not have a problem with the use of temporary or individual septic systems until the sewer, gravity sewer, is available from the Purdom trunk. So is this developer extending the Purdom trunk to and through this property frontage or not?
Mayor, Councilman Haverfield, we've had some additional discussions with the property owner. The Purdom trunk is currently over in this area at Ustic and Northside. The Nampa Development Corporation has funded design of the trunk line within Midland. There is no allocated funding for construction of that yet.
Right.
We're still working on design. This property here, where it's located along Cherry, would be the very tail end of the Purdom Basin. We have reviewed with the property owner or the applicant and his civil engineer what their anticipated waste flows from this development would be, and they are fairly minor. And so the current proposal with them would be to bring the sewer from approximately here at about the first drive aisle into the hospital, extend that into the site and a couple hundred feet north, at which point we run out of grade, and then they would install a sewer trunk or a sewer line heading north with a small private pumping facility that would pump it back to that location until the Purdom extended south to that location.
So there wouldn't be a sewer line or a sewer main across the full frontage of the property then?
No, and our master plans would not call for a sewer main across that. The master plan calls for that to head
go north, right.
ultimately.
And that's what I thought. So that's why I asked the question. So they are planning on putting in the sewer line as far as to connect it back to this, the city's system as a part of this proposal.
Correct.
So that's where I was a little confused, where it says the ability to use a temporary septic system if allowed by the Southwest District Health.
And
But that's not the case here then.
Mayor, Councilman Haverfield, those were some of our initial discussions with the applicant, that was potentially a route that they were looking at. They've since looked at it further, and we have verified that for the amount of flows that they're looking at, we would allow that to be pumped back to the
Into the
extension of the line in Cherry.
Okay, so that, again, I just want to make sure that we're not talking about allowing any temporary installations. Everything will be tied back to our systems.
Correct. There would be no septic installations. There would be a temporary pumping facility that the development would own and maintain until such time as the Purdom or the Noble trunk came and was brought to that property.
So are there any latecomers fees that they might be able to receive from this? Or is it too short of a distance as far as for the connection?
This would not qualify under our policy for any latecomers for this development.
Okay, so I asked the question, you gave me the answer, so they know. All right, thank you.
Are there any further questions for staff?
Mayor,
Yes.
thank you. Norm? Couple questions for you, please. On page 8, I noticed there's a picture of a house, and you were making mention that this was the view or across the way. Is the house just looking into where the development's going to be, or is
That's
the
right.
house going to be taken down?
Well, my understanding that would probably be, the house would be not a part of this. Yeah, that's just,
They're
just
just
this
looking-
view into the property from the south.
Thank you. And then my second question is, with the light industrial in proximity to where the ag land is to, I'm looking at the south, I guess. It's not close enough in proximity that there would be any interference with production of ag land?
So I'm not sure which direction you're talking. A lot of this property, there is zoning in the county for ag presently, but a lot of this property is property that is being, beyond this, entertained under the annexations and zonings to light industrial that are going to be coming before the council later. It's true, there is owned ag in the county now, but the owners of those lands are requesting annexation to light industrial into the city. So
I think, well, I
they're not
was,
planning to continue ag use if they can make them available.
okay, I was looking specifically at one of the maps that had the zoning on it. There we go, where the ag land was, and even though it looks like it's down toward the south,
All this property down here, the
Correct.
city ag zone.
and I know that there's like a buffer between the piece of property we're talking about, but I know that it's come up in the past that there's fallout and there are problems as far as if you have certain type of industry close to ag land and ag production and what the farmers can grow and what meets standards, and that's what the nature of my question was.
Yeah, my understanding, this is primarily, this ag zone area that exists here is in the city limits, and it's the sugar factory property,
Okay,
or not the sugar factory. Yes, the sugar factory property. And it's not being, I don't know how much, if any, if they're using for farming and all.
Okay.
So
okay, thank you.
shouldn't be any interference.
Are there any further questions? Okay, if not, this is a public hearing, and we'll go ahead and open for public testimony. We have several people signed up in support and a couple in opposition. And so the first person we have signed up is Connie. Connie, thank you. And Connie, I know you're experienced at this, but we'll let you go ahead and share your name and your address.
Good evening, I'm Connie Runia. I'm at 6396 Bennett Road in Nampa. I'm standing in support of any development that brings more light industrial. As a business attorney, many of my clients are looking for either to lease or purchase light industrial facilities. They really want to not only live in Nampa, but be able to grow and develop their businesses in Nampa, and light industrial is just the perfect fit for those clients. So thank you for your consideration of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. I appreciate it. Is Jerry Dickinson still here? Oh, there you are. I just didn't see where you were sitting. So Jerry, thank you for coming forward and stating your name and address, and good evening.
Jerry Dickerson, 3615 South Raintree Drive, Napa. You know, I've been a business owner and real estate broker here in town, and I'm in full support of the light industrial because of the support businesses and what it'll bring for jobs. And you know, when you're talking about taxes and impact fees for every 8,000 square foot of building, this city's going to get almost 30 grand. It's 27,800 per 8,000 square foot. So I'm in great support. That's all I got to say.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, is Hugo Costello? And thank you for restating your name and your address for us, please.
Hugo Castillo, 101 11th Avenue South here in Nampa. And I'm just in support of, change and positive change coming to Nampa.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking time to come and testify. We appreciate that. Is Norm Brown still here? I don't, good grief, I should just look straight down the aisle. I am so sorry. Good evening, Norm.
Nice to see you, Madam Mayor. My name is Norm Brown. I'm with Mark Bottles Real Estate. We're at 839 South Bridgeway Place, Eagle, Idaho. I represented the seller on this, so my words are going to be their words. They allowed me to say this tonight. Before we entered into the contract with Forge, number one is they wanted to make sure whoever they sold to really was going to add to the community. If you look back just 36 months ago, we had flex space like this with offices and it rolled up doors where contractors can go in and actually use the space like an electrician, a carpet guy, plumbers. That's non-existent. These will fill up. We are in a shortage of this type of space. So then we went around and we looked at Forge projects, and they're great. These guys are class builders. They do a great job. And as you guys know, with Nampa busting at the seams, I think it'll create a lot of neat space for little small businessmen. And then, let me just make sure I'm not missing anything. Last and finally, the sellers are in full support of the buyers of their property. We really thank you guys for your time and your support on this.
Thank you, Norm. Is David Whaley here?
David Broom?
I'm sorry. W-H-A-L-E-Y is what it looks like on Hector Woods, Nampa. Is that you? Is he? Oh, he had to leave. Well, so noted that he was in support. And then I've got another, I think I have him down here twice. And then Jeff Hatch, I have you down, but you're done. And then David Broom. Let's go to you. And thank you so much for being here.
Good evening, City Council. My name's David Broom. 17,000, oh, look at that. What happened there? 17,400 Midland Boulevard. I was the one that they talked about that was talking about this easement right here. This is my 3.29 acres. And so this easement is actually on Dally Construction's land. They were going to build storage sheds here. They decided not to. I was all in favor of it, but this easement kind of caused some troubles, so they decided not to do that. My biggest concern is this road right here. We have a arena here we've had for 24 years. My wife rides her horses in. This road is going to have a lot of traffic on it right here. And you know the word Google. Google means you can go anywhere. So you can go from right here, right there with your 53-foot trailer or whatever you want to do. So we've been riding our horses in this arena. My wife's extremely concerned about the traffic. Will the developer build a fence right here to protect our property and against this road and maintain that fence? Because if it's smashed, if we own this fence, it's going to be smashed by people constantly on this road in the winter. I've had this road right here 5 times. I've had my fence wiped out. So I know what happens when the road. Will we be brought into the annexation? Will we be forced into taxes into the city yet? We're not in there. You know that next week or next month you'll be coming and talking about 353 acres back here that's going to come into light industrial, which is going to back up right there to that side. The city's going to take 40 feet of my property right here on the end to extend Lassiter east all the way to, for the future to North Side. This right here is about 550 feet of eventual loss to my property that I will lose whenever a road is built or something. I don't know how much 550 times about 25 is, but it's a bunch off my property line. This bridge right here, will this bridge still have access to this road right here on the canal? That's where I maintain the road for the canal company. One thing I'm really concerned about is this is a 50-foot right-of-way, an easement. Now, we all know the Google will let you go anywhere. So they're going to go right here, and they're going to try to turn a 53-foot trailer out of here on a Midland Road. Will they be turn lanes, access lanes, to make it so a trailer can make that approach? Because a 50-foot easement is not very narrow, is not very big when you're considering the size of trucks that could be possibly being used back here. I think that's it. I appreciate your time. I am completely for whatever these guys want to build back here. I don't care what you build. It's their property. They spent the money on it. Just like when these 353 acres come in, whatever these guys want to build, I'd like to see if they possibly will leave a little gap so I can see Bogus Basin. If you want to build there, I don't care what you build. Be nice if they'd work with us and make a little gap so we can still see between the two buildings. But you can put in there whatever you want. It's their property. They've spent the money on it. We need the jobs here. So thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Broom, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming to speak. Thank you. Okay, so we have two people signed up in opposition, and it's Nicole and Wayne Nicholson. And then I see that Nicole has a no speaking. So Nicole and Wayne, are you here? Nicole and Wayne Nicholson. Okay, so, and then Rick, is that who had to leave? There was a couple that left. They didn't talk to you, okay. So that maybe wasn't them. Okay, so we do have two people, Nicole and just so noted, that are in opposition, but there is a note here, no speaking. Okay, is there anyone else that it had intended to testify? Yes, okay, go ahead and come forward and share your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Kathy Myers, and my address is 9802 Cherry Lane. I'm the long skinny piece right next door to it. I have lived on this property and right next door for 48 years. My parents bought this property in 1965, and I purchased it from them in 94 and built my home and raised my family there. My concern is that ours is voted agricultural. We have 5.49 acres, so we're over 5 acres. We raise cows and goats, and there is lots of concern that we have for the amount of traffic. Is it going to scare our cattle? Is it going to, it's not a lot of cattle, there's a couple cows, but the other concern that I have is the traffic is unbelievable. I don't know if any of you have driven down around Cherry Lane or Midland around the mall. Thankfully, the road division put in a turn lane so we are able to turn into our driveway, but we have to sit there sometimes for minutes to get out of our driveway. It is unbelievable. So my concern is a couple things. One is the traffic, and like the gentleman said about the road, there's a canal that goes right down that line between our property and the 1700s on the left side. There's a canal, Pioneer Irrigation District, that runs down there, and there's a road that runs on to the left side of the property, and they have access to ours on the right side. We have people driving down our property. We've had multiple things stolen. They come down, although it's not a right-of-way and it is our private land, they come down that ditch bank and they come down. We've had trucks come down and turn around in our driveway and get stuck because unfortunately it's rain and it's a long muddy road and they've gotten stuck. I've got so many concerns that I don't know. Evidently they're going to put in the the businesses that can have the raised doors and on all of that. How many are they going to put in? How many doors are going to be? How many businesses are there going to be that is going to allow that access onto Cherry Lane? In addition to, are we going to lose our agricultural exemption that we have right now? My husband is a Purple Heart veteran who was severely injured in Iraq. And just the helicopters that come in to the hospital is enough to send him over the edge. How much traffic and how much noise is there going to be? So those are my concerns. It says already here that it's already been approved and recommended, so I know my words mean nothing. I just wanted you to know and to think about all of these people. The Millers are here. They've lived across the canal from us for 30 years. Yeah. And I know there's other people. There's another veteran that I know purchased his property right across the street. He paid a lot of money for his beautiful house and his garage, his shop, that he's also affected. Everywhere around us is going into homes. Everywhere is going into homes, 300 and some acres. It's great it says light industrial, but they're going to put homes in there. It is already, go down Ustick Road and try to turn left onto Midland, or try to turn right on Midland, or Middleton. It is unbelievable. And I'm all for growth. I'm a residential mortgage, I used to own my own mortgage broker company. I'm all for residential. It has grown too fast. We cannot substantiate the growth. Look how many firemen and police officers we don't even have enough. So that's my concern, and I thank you for your time. I apologize for the emotions. This has been my home since I was 10 years old, and we are losing everything because of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in. You don't have to apologize for your tears, because I certainly understand it. So I don't have anyone else signed up, but were there some, I'm thinking there's some people that intended to speak. So go ahead and come forward and state your name and address.
My name is Rick Gibson. I'm at 17192 Midland Boulevard. My property kind of backs right up to Bill and Kathy's. One of the things she did mention was the traffic. Now, just a question. If you've ever got off the freeway and tried to go up Midland, going past Costco and all that, I don't know how any big trucks are even going to get through there, because it already takes me, 10 minutes sometimes just to get from one side of the freeway to my house. So I understand the revenues, the jobs, the taxes for bringing in new business growth. I get that, and this is going to help the budget to support fire and police, all good things. And I have heard it said that this is one of the last places they can put something like this. But due to the roads and the traffic, is it a good place for it? I don't know. The traffic being a consideration, the roads, traffic already there. One of the questions I do have, the flyers that are posted out there where they show this business park is all in pink. This pink encompasses my house. But that's not what's showing up here, but this is what is on the flyers out there. So we're trying to find out, what is that going to do?
Good question. We'll have someone answer that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means to us. And as David said, that widening that road is going to be substantial property loss to all of us that are going up Midland there. But I understand that's probably going to happen regardless of what goes in here, because the traffic is horrendous trying to go up Midland.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else that would like to testify this evening? Anyone over here? No? I just want to give you the opportunity if you want to. And as you know, please state your name and address.
I'm Sandy Miller. I live at 17100 Midland, which is in the middle of that row. The traffic thing, one night I was coming down and from Ustick, I was turning on Ustick, from off Ustick onto Midland, and I met 110 cars, and I live maybe 3/4 of a mile down. They were stopped back well beyond a half mile to try to even turn on Ustick. So that's all I had to say. It's just the traffic is really bad. My husband was at Sportsman's and at Christmas time, and it took him 45 minutes to get back to our house from Sportsman's Warehouse. We can see it out our front window. So the traffic is an issue, but I know that it takes development to fix that too.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking. Is there anyone else that would like to share this evening that in support of or in opposition to? Okay, so I don't see anyone else that would like to speak on behalf of this evening. So this is the opportunity, Mr. Hatch, for you to come and provide response. And then Norm, I'm not sure if you provided response. Did you answer the question, you and Rodney? Mm-hmm. You did? Okay.
That is the long-term plan for that to be business park. I just said my long-term plan was I'm not giving up my house.
Okay. Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay. So you've heard some concerns this evening. Thank you for following up and giving us some response.
Again, Jeff Hatch with Hatch Design. Thank you. I wanted to just reiterate appreciation for the comments from the neighbors. One of the concerns, David Broom had reached out to us, which we were recommended and requested from the Planning and Zoning Commission, which he attended to talk to us, and he had mentioned the concern about his arena and fencing. So we did follow up with the owner, and they're in favor of putting a screened fence along there for safety of his property, and that would be something on the proposed parcel. So it's not something that he, as a landowner, would need to be maintaining. It would be something that the owner is taking responsibility for. Kathy Myers had also expressed, and several of the neighbors had expressed concerns with traffic and traffic impact in this area. This was something that we talked with Caleb and Daniel Badger with the city fairly extensively about industrial parks and industrial uses. A typical heavy industrial street section is 70 feet wide, which would accommodate a passing lane and having semi-trucks and lots of loading and stuff. And that's not really the intent of what we would want in this development this close to the hospital. Our intention is something much more similar to what Norm had mentioned earlier. We want subcontractors, we want light industrial uses, we want flex space, things that our small business owners can come in and occupy and grow and be a part of our community. And so the consideration would be to reduce that street section by about 20 feet down to something that's more acceptable on about a 50-foot wide basis. And that's something that we've discussed with the city and feel that we can still meet the intent of what we want, but restrict that heavy industrial use to this area and be responsive to that concern for traffic impact. I think those were the two main concerns. I know there was some discussion about the Pioneer District, irrigation district. We have submitted for the bridge construction, and it was heard at a public hearing on February 7th. From that public hearing, it is in process. We did follow up with our engineer just prior to this hearing. It sounds like it's in process, requiring signatures and stuff, but they've reviewed that and seem to also be in support of this project. So I'll stand for any other questions.
Council, questions?
Yeah, a couple of quick questions for you. It appears that there'll be a 50-foot right-of-way, so there'll be some additional property that will be given along the frontage here. The frontage improvements that are required, will that add another lane, or will it just be added asphalt there? Mainly what I'm asking, I guess I should have asked first, is there was a de-annexation of the right-of-way that goes down to Midland, and now we're talking about, as a part of this project, to annex it as well. So will the road frontage improvements be extended all the way to Midland in this proposal, or just along the frontage? That was a question I was either going to ask you or Daniel. Should I ask you, Daniel? Oh, okay. So just let that one pass. Don't worry about it. But give us a little bit of an understanding from your perspective what buffering you're going to be providing abutting residential with this development. You talk about a fence, talk about a 50-foot wide road section, but that little piece that ties back into Midland up there is only 50 feet wide per the comments. What kind of, again, what buffering are you going to provide there as far as along that section there, as far as with landscaping? You talk about a fence, but you can't have the road right up against the fence. So if you can talk about that a little bit, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. So for the majority of the property, we're proposing to have our access centralized, so it's going to be towards the middle of the property. We would have buildings on either side of that roadway, and then any type of yard or back of the industrial complex would then kind of taper off to help, again, kind of buffer from noise and screen traffic. On the northern side, for connectivity purposes, the intent in talking with engineering, and Daniel can kind of discuss this as well, intent of that 50-foot is that in the future, this roadway may be extended to the north. They're not sure how the connectivity of all these commercial developments are coming to pass would be appropriated.
To the property to the north?
To the properties, parcels to the
So
north.
yeah, okay, so there'd be a future extension there. I'm talking about the west extension to Midland and the width of that road section. Is it going to be 30 feet wide with 10-foot landscape strips on either side, or what is the intent for the width of that road section?
And again, Daniel can probably get a little bit more specific, but within that 50 feet, that does accommodate for sidewalks, curb and gutter, things of that nature.
And some landscaping?
I know on the southern side for sure, we have landscaping.
But you have a residential.
Concrete answers.
Yeah, so you have a residential user on the north side too, so we have to have sensitivity to them since they're there as well. So maybe I should just direct my questions in when Daniel can come back up, but thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions from council?
Mayor?
Mr. Hatch, yes.
Thank you. Sir, a couple questions. One of the ladies testified that at 9802 about her agricultural land butts up against 9778. And will there be some kind of buffer or fence dividing the two?
There's I believe, in the staff report, it indicates there's a 16-foot irrigation easement that's required. So that would be part of that buffer.
Okay. In between the two properties? Because I see what I'm thinking is the irrigation, but it's from 9802 and the homes on Midland.
It's actually the line that is between your parcel and then the skinny strip is what I think Councilwoman Levi is requesting.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct? Right.
So
Okay, so that,
is the developer planning on putting anything there as far as a division because she has cattle and livestock?
At this time, we would be supportive of any considerations you have, but this is the first we've heard of it, so.
Okay. And because that was the other thing I was going to ask Norm, is I am concerned that I appreciate you wanting to work with them about a screened fence down on the two roads around the arena, but there's nothing that I'm seeing in the conditions of approval. Would you be open to that in the conditions of approval?
Yeah.
Okay. And then my other question, and I'm not sure if you would know this because you had mentioned the irrigation district and there's waiting signatures. The same lady had also testified that vehicles drive down the irrigation road there and they're turning around, getting stuck in her drive, et cetera. Is if, with the placement of the bridge, if it's approved, do you know, will that alleviate the traffic coming down and only the irrigation district would have access to that?
Any answer I have, Commissioner Levy, would be speculation because I'm not firsthand encountering this issue. It appears that it's either a miscommunication of the roadway. People are thinking it's a dirt road that accesses somewhere. They're having to turn back around. So that would be something that would probably be a request to address to the irrigation company. And maybe they need to put in a gate or something or signage to help clarify that.
So did I misunderstand about a bridge access?
Yeah, that particular ditch bank would not be the responsibility of this particular property owner because it's on the west side of, it is the irrigation ditch. Can we do a little bit different picture? Correct. Right, which is not associated with this. Okay, hang on just a second. So, do we have a Google map? Could you give us a Google map?
What is the placement of the bridge? That would help me.
Commissioner Levy, the proposed bridge would be right here.
And that's that's where I'm going, is if they access on that bridge, then continue down that road. Am I making myself clear, or am I confusing it?
East-west.
Oh, it's an east.
Right.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Levy, it is a east-west bridge. It is a culvert, like a large culvert. So if anything, it's probably going to deter northwest or north-south traffic because there wouldn't really be a very easy way to do that.
My misunderstanding, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Hatch? I'm not sure if we've resolved, I think we have, because I think what I'm hearing is a little different, but it's my I'm curious where the irrigation ditch is with the road, and I can't tell. Yes, go ahead, come up, and then if you could,
Rodney's got it right there.
right, is that the ditch?
Yeah.
And it goes all the way clear down there. Where that yellow line is, there's a easement road, Pioneer easement, which doesn't stop people from coming down on both sides of the canal. And where that corner is, come down, right there. That corner is where they get access to our property.
Got it.
Okay, so Mayor, and if I may, so it's nothing, you cannot put a gate or something?
As per Pioneer Tire.
They will not allow you to do that,
Not allow us
even though it is your property? Okay, thanks.
That is not unique to, I mean, it is pretty standard, and I can totally identify with that frustration because we've dealt with that in the past, and that can be very frustrating.
Mayor, may I say one
yes.
more thing? And it's not directed to you, sir, Mr. Hatch, but to Mr. Broom. As long as I'm on the council, I am 100% against forced annexations.
Well, I'm not sure what that had to do with this issue.
I was going to make it in my statement, and I was following up, and so I said, I clarified it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. In the public hearing, I'm thinking that's a little bit out, and I don't disagree with you, but I'm confused about where that got placed right here. Because I think I would agree, but, okay. Any further questions for Mr. Hatch? Okay.
I did have one additional statement or clarification for the council. Councilmember Haverfield had mentioned or inquired about the septic tanks. And so the intent and the way that I read the staff report, and for the record, the current house that is there, we would be obligated to abandon that system, which makes all the sense in the world. The consideration for the potential temporary approval for septic system use would be because the way my client has purchased this is they only currently own the northern 12 acres. And their intent is to develop that and then work their way south to Cherry Lane and tie in with the sewer and that lift station as they progress. And so the first phase of this development may be done on septic systems. And so I just wanted to clarify that potential intent. It may be that we just end up being able to build the road, but the proposed intent and what we've discussed in the past would be the possibility, based on development, to have a temporary system that could be tied into that overall system described.
Well, thanks for the clarity, but that's not the explanation that I received, obviously, from Daniel, so I'd like to get a bit more clarity from engineering as far as what we're approving going forward. And the use of temporary systems is basically what my question was. So if I can get that clarity from him, I'd appreciate it.
Thanks, sir.
And we are not closing public hearings, so if we need to have you come back for clarity, we will, because our public hearing is still open. So Norm or Rodney, or
Daniel.
Daniel. I think, Daniel, you're on. Thank you. I just went the whole gamut there. Thank you.
Mayor, Councilman Haverfield, based on his description of where they will develop first, we would not oppose a temporary scenario of a septic system for, if they're developing at the north end first, developing those first couple of buildings, and then coming back and connecting them onto sewer, as they continue to develop south. We would not oppose that.
So as far as, that was my original question, as far as the extension from the Purdom coming down, that's not the intent here. That's more of a long-term goal.
That would be a long-term
Right.
goal.
And your answer to me initially was that there would be a connection from the southwest
Right.
onto the property up through to the middle. And I guess I'm confused now as to why that is still not a possibility that could be accomplished. Even if the road's not put in, if the utility line was put in, then there could be a connection.
That certainly could be accomplished. Ultimately, that becomes a financing and what is financially viable for them to construct and how they phase that.
So is this time sensitive as far as how long the temporary installation would be then?
That is certainly within your purview to place a time frame on that.
And I guess I'm wondering why the wisdom, well, you say it's less expensive to put something in than tear it back out later or abandon it, I guess. What size line are we talking about coming from the southwest through the property?
We would be looking at I believe it's a 12-inch extension in Cherry, an 8 to 12, and then a 8-inch into the property.
8-inch to the property. What about continuing north? Would that be 8 inch as well then?
So the piece that they would be placing heading north would be an 8-inch line because that really would just serve their property. It would not need to continue any farther south. That is the tail end of the line there.
So, and again, you talked about the grades as far as there'd be a pump there in the northern portion eventually. So if the property owner to the east, as an example, wanted to tie into a sewer line, would they be able to tie into that sewer line that's being put on this property?
We would have to look at what type of uses and volumes they are proposing to discharge to see whether the downstream lines would be able to handle that or not.
Currently, this property, it states that the Purdom station or the Purdom area can take on this additional effluent.
Certainly the Purdom could handle this area. What we've looked at is the interstate basin here for the volumes that they are proposing and uses would be able to handle those flows.
So my example of someone to the east trying to tie in would not be warranted because all you're looking at is what is currently available, and this would fit into that.
Right.
Anything above and beyond that would...
We would have to evaluate at that time.
Okay. And then back to my question, as far as on the road improvements on Cherry Lane, the width is being requested from the center line, an additional 50, whatever it is, to get to 50 feet. What about on Midland up there on that west side? Are you looking for 50 feet there as well?
So yes, we would have any place they're annexing, they would be required to dedicate the 50 feet of right-of-way adjacent to both Midland and Cherry.
And that's not listed in this as far as recommended conditions of approval.
The issue we run into there is this roadway, it is an easement. The property owner here does not own that property. It is owned by another entity. And so as we looked at that, that's where that did not make a recommendation there. We can certainly work with the property owner, and if that underlying property owner is willing to do that dedication at this point, we would be doing that. We could have that dedication done They are proposing to put a street in at that location, so they will have improvements all the way out to the existing Midland Boulevard pavement. And so coming back in the future for the Midland widening or widening that is necessitated by any traffic impact study that they would do at such time as they come in for either a subdivision or a building permit on those lots, that would also play into what improvements are done on those roadways.
So if the primary access point is from Midland onto the property, at what point does the second exit have to, or access have to be provided?
That's based on the fire code. For residential, I know that one off the top of my head.
Yeah.
For the industrial, I don't know what the square footage trigger is. But when they come in for their development permits, building permits or subdivision wise, in my understanding is their intent is to do some lot splits and develop some initial buildings and then potentially come back and subdivide later. So those considerations would be evaluated at the time of the building permits and enforced based on the existing codes.
And I'm not going to try to second guess the logic of the developer to develop that portion first instead of the frontage off of Cherry Lane, but it just is posing more questions to me than there are answers. And I don't want to get in the way of this. I want to see development. Obviously, it's a benefit to the community. So I just want to make sure that the developer's eyes wide open going forward. And then the setbacks as far as for residential, what the buffering is there. Is it 10 feet, 20 feet?
So in discussion of a setback up here, this would all be roadway improvements, and so there would be no setback buffering required based on the fact that that's a roadway. Our zoning code does not require buffering of roadways. The adjacent uses between a residential use and a light industrial use is 30 feet,
30 feet.
of buffer.
Okay. So that
And
should
that's
be,
between buildings, and so that's between the buildings and the property line.
but asphalt can't be in that 30 feet?
It can.
Up to
It
how
does
much?
not. Yeah, right up to the property.
So what kind of a buffer is that to a residential development if there's no landscaping?
It's the one that's required by our code currently.
Okay. Is that a condition? Well, I guess,
Certainly, you can place more stringent conditions on as you see fit.
okay, thank you.
One other question, Councilman Haverfield, that you posed was the question of the frontage improvements on Cherry and the de-annexation that was done. The annexation of this parcel triggers our memorandum of understanding with the Nampa Highway District that we are now over the 52% in that area, and so that is why the condition of annexing this full section between 10 Lane and Midland back into the city. The improvements that the development will have to do along Cherry would be they will have to put sidewalk in along there. They will not have to put curb gutter sidewalk or curb and gutter and pavement widening. They may have to do a turn lane if their traffic study calls for that.
But if they're, again, and that's back to my initial question, if the main access is from Midland and they're not creating an access point off of Cherry Lane to begin with,
That the improvements here would not be necessitated until they develop the property adjacent to that
okay,
section.
all right.
So I have a question. I'm a little bit confused on the sewer piece. What I think I'm understanding is that you actually could provide sewer, city sewer, from Cherry Lane up through the southernmost property. Is that correct?
So the sewer that's located here, we can gravity sewer to somewhere in here. At that point, we have about 3 feet of cover on the sewer main, which is, we don't want to go any, that's not enough to go any farther because the land itself is falling this direction. And so what they would do is then install a sewer line flowing north to a pump station that would pump back to this sewer and discharge out to the interstate basin.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Are there any other questions from council?
No, Mayor, the only other question I'd have would be for Norm. What I hear being described is more of like an incubator approach as far as for small business development. Is that kind of what has been proposed here?
That's what it sounded like was represented.
So there'd be minimal plumbing requirements, offices, and mostly warehouse or fabrication space.
Yeah, I don't know the details of what their plan is as far as actual uses,
Okay.
other than what's been stated here.
So the idea of
I believe
having-
Norm Brown behind you does have that answer. Could we allow him to answer that question?
You're the mayor.
Well, if there's a question, and we might as well get it right now.
Madam Mayor and Council, these will be very minimal, Mr. Haverfield. They'll have an office, right? Maybe 800 square feet. You'll have a roll-up door where you store all your material. You're going to have a faucet and a toilet.
Do you know anything about the groundwater level out there?
Did that get done?
So is
There's
report.
not, yeah, that's why they're going to put in that little pump. We don't have any high water
No,
out
well,
that I'm aware of.
it's just, sometimes when you get into situations like this and you have seasonal groundwater, the height or the spread on the bed that you have to put the influent into is going to have to be shallow and big, and it's going to take up some area. So that's where I'm wondering why the wisdom of not connecting to the sewer system now instead of later. But
Yeah, I can't answer that, but I can tell you it's minimal water. You got, just a little office, toilet,
Okay.
and a sink.
all right, thanks.
Thank you, Norm. Okay, are there any other questions for staff? Okay, and no other questions for the applicant? Okay, that said, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Council discussion.
And Mayor, I'm not going to make the motion at this point. There's some conditions of approval, I think, that have been stated, so if we could include those. Councilwoman Levi, are you ready for this?
I think there were some
Yeah.
requirements for fencing,
Yeah.
potential west boundary on the property line fenced, and then, I don't know about the fencing.
Mayor Kling, I'd like to include a condition as well, as far as along the west side at least, that there'd be actual landscape buffer and not just asphalt. Fencing is fencing, but having a landscape buffer along that side, I think, is important just for the sensitivity to residential owners that are still there. Being able to pave clear up to the property line doesn't do much for me, but to the east, I don't think that that's going to be important, because I think that's going to be developed into industrial, possibly even to the north as well. But sensitivity, at least to the west side, would be important to me.
Agreed.
Any other discussion? Okay, what's the will of the council? Councilman Bauer, are you thinking about making a motion? Nope, okay,
I'll lean on Councilman Randy's understanding of it.
Oh, great.
okay.
Mayor Kling, I'll make a motion that we go ahead and approve the annexation and zoning request as proposed to us tonight with the recommended conditions of approval, one being added that a 10-foot landscape buffer, not allowing any asphalt along the western boundary line, be another condition that's added to the recommended conditions of approval. And I didn't see it stated in here, but that, and also that a 50-foot right-of-way also be dedicated on the, well, I guess I can't do that since they don't own that property. They're going to be looking for an easement across it. So I guess it would be with the recommended conditions of approval as stated and the 10-foot landscape strip along the western boundary line.
Does that require a fence for security purposes?
Yes, let's make it a 6-foot side obscuring fence
Possibly with landscape.
with the
Or-
landscape buffer on the east side of the fence.
So Mayor, Councilman Hatfield, is there some conditions of what that fence quality would be?
Side obscuring.
What's
so
that mean?
you
I guess
can't
I'm
see through
asking
it.
for,
You can't see through it, so it's not like chain link.
okay, sight obscuring.
Yeah,
Okay.
6 foot. Could be vinyl, it could be wood. Does that fit for you, Norm? You catch that? That work? My, okay. That's my motion. See if it dies.
I'll second it.
Didn't die.
Regarding the landscaping on the east side, there's no benefit to the west side property owner if the landscaping's on the east side. So I'm just trying to think on that landscaping plus fencing. I'm thinking fencing for security purposes.
Right.
But then,
It's side
But- or-
obscuring as well.
right,
So
so,
you kind of get a layering effect with the trees that can be in that 10-foot landscape strip. So you have a 6-foot solid fence, and then you've got the trees that can be placed in that landscape area along that western side. So it does help break that up. And it does provide some shade back into that, to the area behind those buildings. So it's not a bad thing to have. But I think it's just more the sensitivity to the residential development that I'm trying to provide.
perfect. Is there any other discussion? Do we have clarity? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
No.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Okay, that concludes our public hearing 6-2. I think we've been here for almost 3 hours. We need to take a brief break, and we will be back. We do not have anyone signed up for the next 2 public hearings, but we do have an applicant, I'm sure, for the public hearing 6-3. So we are going to take a between 5 and 10-minute break, and then we'll be back to conclude.
Well, let's see if I can get up.
Rightfully so.
Longer than 10? No. Do we have any chips or anything? Thank you so much, TJ.
I found some peanuts.
There you go. Okay, so we're going to go to 6-3. Okay, so we're ready for public hearing 6-3. And thank you guys for hanging with us. I apologize, we have run really late tonight, so thank you all. It's appreciated. So 6-3 is an action item, and this is amendment of Title 10, Chapter 21, Animal Zoning Regulations, 102101 through 202505, inclusive and pertaining to zoning regulations applicable to the keeping of animals, an amendment of Title 10, Chapter 24 variance. Are you going to go through I'll keep going. I don't know if I have to go through all these, but I'll keep going. Sections 102401 through 202405 inclusive, pertaining to the scope and procedure of obtaining a variance. Zoning text edits are for the purpose of adding additional clarity and increasing the readability of Title 10, Chapters 21 and 24 for the City of Nampa. Rodney, thank you.
My pleasure. Mayor and Council, Rodney Ashby, Principal Planner for the record. And I'm not going to read that again. That's up on the
Thank you.
screen. So those are just two chapters we're going to go through quickly. Just a reminder about where we're at in this process of updating our city code. We've already talked about storage units, made those chapters. Chapter 33, we did the landscaping changes. We are now looking at chapters 21 and 24 tonight. Those changes have been completed. These are ones that we've worked with Mark Hilty's office and Doug Waterman to update our code. And the primary focus here is clarity and simplicity for our code so that it's clear to residents, it's clear to applicants, developers, and clear to staff and clear to you. We want to make this a lot more clear. And so the next ones that we are currently developing is Chapter 1, General Provisions. This is our biggest chapter of the entire code. There's a lot to this chapter, and we are well deep into changes that we're making. But again, these are primarily for clarity. And then Chapter 32, RV parks, we've already submitted those changes to Doug Waterman to make those changes, and then we'll bring those to you in the near future. Following those changes, Chapter 1 and Chapter 32, we'll come back to you before you for Chapter 3, Land Use Districts. This is our land use table that we've talked about going through for several months now, and we'll get down into the nitty-gritty of what should be allowed where, and so that will be a pretty good discussion. And then those are the last two, Chapter 28 and 29, manufactured homes and mobile homes, as well as tiny homes and how do those fit, and all those questions. So that's where we're at in the process. Just applicable regulations, basically it comes down to, is it reasonable, is it necessary, is it in the interest of the public to make these zoning code changes? And is it in harmony with the goals and objectives of the adopted comprehensive plan? So, quick summary of Chapter 24 variances. I've included a proposed ordinance change in your packet. If you want to go into that in detail, we can, but I just highlighted the major issues. So 102401, clarification of the need for an applicant to show an undue hardship caused by characteristics of the site. It's not related to, I wanted to make more money and so I need to get a variance to build more homes, or whatever that is. You can't do that. You also can't look at it for land use reasons, a variance to allow a land use that otherwise wouldn't be allowed. So that clarification is there. And then the second point there, clarification that council may approve a variance as long as it isn't in conflict with the public interest. 102402, elimination of the definition of a variance that is repeated multiple times throughout the chapter. We're going to have one place, so if we ever make a change to that, it's clear that that's the definition. The next one, reformatting for ease of understanding conditions that must occur if a variance is granted for specific purposes. Okay, chapter 21, animals, 102102. Clarification that when calculating the minimum square footage for an open area for farm animals, building structures or covered enclosures should be excluded. I think that's pretty clear unless you have questions. Clarification that when agricultural animals qualify as pets, 1021.3 supersede the regulations in 1021.02. So basically, if it's considered an agricultural animal pet, it has different regulations than a full agricultural animal. So a cow or a horse or whatever, that doesn't qualify, typically doesn't qualify as a pet. 1021.03, clarification that animal enclosures and pens regulations do not apply to perimeter fencing. 1021.04, authority is given to the planning director to utilize other agencies appropriate to deal with enforcing the codes for apiaries. 1021.05, removal of unnecessary wording that is already incorporated in other parts of the animal regulation code. Okay, here's where we get into a little bit of change. These are recommended changes from the Planning and Zoning Commission. They recommended adoption of these two ordinances with these changes. What I've done is I've highlighted them in red and blue. So the red is what I removed based on their recommendations, and blue is what I've added. So some clarity, I just combined some of these animals into just a list of birds, some types of birds or fowl including, and then I list all those different kinds. And then I also put this section here, or any other fowl whose calls are audible over similar distances or qualify as a nuisance as defined in 1021.3E of this chapter. So what this is doing is it's taking it's providing an exception so that most of these are not allowed, animals are allowed except as pets, except for, and then it lists these specific types of animals, agricultural animals. And then I'll get into a little more detail about this last part here in this next slide. Chickens, we give the number of animals allowed in the right-hand side of the column there. I've added to the first column pigeons or doves so that a resident could have 10 chickens, or they could have 10 pigeons or 10 doves. And then I also put ducks and other small birds or fowls kept for non-commercial purposes, and that's up to 3. But remember that if they have a call that is louder or causes a nuisance that is louder than or is similar in volume to a chicken rooster, then it would still not be allowed because it's a nuisance. So those are the main changes that we made based on the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And I placed the recommended findings in the staff report and on the screen. And then the decision is before you. I'd stand for questions.
Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none at this time. This is a public hearing, and I don't believe we have anyone signed up in support of or in opposition to the proposed amendments. Is there anyone in the audience that had intended to testify or speak on behalf of this issue this evening? Seeing none, I think I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, council, if there are no questions for Rodney, stand for discussion and/or a motion.
Mayor, I would move that we amend Title 10, Chapter 21, and Sections 102101, 202105, Title 10, Chapter 24, and et cetera, on case number ZTA 00014-2019 and ZTA 00015-2019.
With recommended
With
conditions.
recommended conditions of approval and
Findings.
and what?
Findings?
and findings and facts.
They just have including recommended findings.
Oh, okay, thank you.
This is her opportunity.
Would you like to second that motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Pucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to move back to public hearing 6.1 on the agenda. And thank you, Daniel. This is the creation of the Local Improvement District, LID 168, for improvements for constructing sidewalks, pedestrian ramps, drive approaches, curbs, gutters, and other related improvements. And these are voluntary, which is a very important word because we have determined, and I appreciate the support of council on this, that I don't believe in that we should do mandatory LID to where we make someone do it. So these are the voluntary ones. Daniel.
Mayor and council, for the benefit of Councilman Mucci, a local improvement district is a financing mechanism that the city is able to offer to our citizens to do sidewalk, curb gutter improvements in front of their homes that are required based on let me rephrase that. Sidewalks are the responsibility of property owners adjacent to them. So the city funds, helps fund that or finance that through a local improvement district where the city outlays the money to make the improvements that the property owners want. We finance that through bonds or the city I guess the city's, what fund would that be? General fund, and finance that over a 10-year period at a relatively low interest rate. And so historically, we've done this as a voluntary basis. For a couple of years, as the mayor said, we did it as a mandatory for some property owners. We have gone back to a voluntary section. We had 43 volunteers this year within Zone G. The map up on the overhead shows the location of that. Generally, most of those property owners, or the area we targeted was the north portion of the Kurtz Addition, there south of Roosevelt, north of Colorado. The cost of this is, to the property owners, is estimated at around $150,000 spread over those 43 property owners. The highest dollar value being around $13,000 and the lowest dollar value being around $500, just based on what the property owners wanted done. Generally speaking, the bills that they would receive would be an annual bill, typically in the spring, and they can pay that off at any time. The only penalty would be they have to pay a full year's of interest for whatever year they're paying it off at. And we received one letter from a property owner who was not able to be here. We spoke to her on the phone, addressed the concerns she had, and she was in favor of proceeding as one of our volunteers. And would stand for
So
any
Mayor,
questions.
Daniel, 43 out of, I see the number of parcels. That's not that's not the full quantity, right? 6,000 something?
Those are all of the parcels within Zone F. So within Asset Management Zone F, so we have the city split up into 7 asset management zones.
Right.
Within Zone F, there are 6,042 parcels. Those are the parcels that we sent out mailers to, asking if there were 4 volunteers who wanted to have things done. 43 is how many we received out of that, which is a fairly typical volunteer amount.
Did you by any chance go out and identify others that probably should be done? Like what would the total number be that should be fixed? Are you able to speak to that?
We
Just
did
out of
not-
curiosity.
We did not specifically inspect Zone F now that when we are not doing mandatory required properties. Historically, in those zones that we looked at, there was probably over 300 to 600 within there that do have ADA compliance issues. There are probably more than that, but but that many that we would say are in need of being addressed. I would anticipate that that number would be fairly consistent throughout this zone as well.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Daniel? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to public hearing. So this is a public hearing, and it's because of ordinance that it needs to be a public hearing, but we do not have anyone signed up in support of or in opposition to this. Is there anyone here this evening that would like to testify or had intended to? Okay, seeing none, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Madam Mayor, I'll make the motion that council authorize creation of sidewalk LID 168.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded, and I would like to defer to our Finance Director, Doug Racine.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to make a comment in general about lids. Through our general government fund, we front the money for the rollout and the cost of the lids so that the consumer or the homeowners can pay us back over time. That becomes a bit of a accounting challenge. If most of the people pay us back, but when they don't pay us back, we have very limited recourse on collecting the money other than turning the home over for a tax sale, which we generally choose not to do. So we end up with a certain amount of bad debts on these lids. It's not over the top, but I think we've got about $350,000 roughly in lids right now. And I think last time we checked, Daniel, was like a 8 or 9% delinquency rate, somewhere around there.
Mayor and council, that delinquency rate is a bit of a misnomer.
Lots of things in there.
Because of that is the delinquency rate of all active accounts. There are a number of accounts that have already been paid off and fallen off of that number. So if I remember, we were at a much smaller percentage as we looked at all of the property owners that were participants in those LIDs. The delinquency rate was smaller than that. That was, I believe, the rate that we were looking at of current and active accounts. We have some of those that are really old delinquent accounts, and so as those ones, the others get paid off, that delinquency rate looks a little bit skewed. We don't typically see an 8 to 9% out of, like, for these 43 properties, we would not anticipate to see an 8 to 9% rate going delinquent. It would be smaller than that. It's just as the active accounts that we look at, that's what it was for that.
And I would be curious to know of the delinquent accounts, how many of those were under the mandatory LID versus the voluntary
None.
accounts? None of those were mandatory?
No, we are still working on closing the mandatory ones. Those should be coming forth in the next month or so.
I'll provide you a finance update on where we stand in lids in total. But just keep in mind, this is a use of general government funds. If we go into a legislative problem where we're cramped down, this just takes money out of our reserves. I'm not saying no, just be aware that's a cost coming out of our reserves.
Oh, that's interesting. Thank you. Okay, are there any other questions? Is there any discussion?
Mayor, can I, my second, can I make a change to the second then?
Well, you could
Or-
offer a substitute motion and see if,
Okay.
Darrell, was that your motion?
It was.
Okay. Do you have a substitute motion?
Do you want to say depending on what happens to it? Next thing? Okay. I'll stand with that.
To be clean.
Yeah, I'll stand with that for right now.
Okay,
But I am concerned.
okay.
Yeah,
We'll be concerned with a lot of things,
you're right. Right.
just not this.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, roll call.
Bucci? Yes. Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Okay, so that concludes our public hearings. And so at that, we're going to go clear back to the beginning of the agenda. Wow. So we had no proclamations tonight, so we're past that. Clear at the beginning here. We actually addressed Nampa residents wishing to speak on an agenda item. We did have a comment on mayor and council comments, board and commission council liaison update. And Rick is out back at the moment. So Rick, were you doing that or was I doing that? On the board and commission update, was that you? Okay,
The gentleman was happy with the process.
good.
We are on the new action item. I apologize.
Well, we're just on the mayor and council comments, and there was a bullet, board and commissions council liaison update. And since,
Yes.
as you oversee our boards and commissions.
Yeah,
and
so I've created a roster. We have multiple boards and commissions. We like to have a council liaison assigned to each. There are some who are assigned to boards and commissions, and then there are some boards and commissions that are currently vacant. And so we will be following up in inquiring what interest you might have. So right now, Councilman Rodriguez has been assigned to the Golf Commission. Councilman Bruner's on NDC, and I think that's
Well, wait, just the wastewater.
wastewater. And Councilman Munchie is new.
So whatever you need, she's the new one.
Library. I was on the library, and the library is up, and that's actually required by ordinance to have a liaison. So that's not an optional liaison, and they meet once a month. Councilwoman Levi is on aging and housing authority.
Housing Authority, VRT.
And VRT.
And Historic Arts and Preservation.
And Historic Arts and Preservation have that. Councilman Haverfield is actually on the committee, Historic Arts and NDC. Airport Commission, you still going to those? Okay. And then Councilman Bauer, there's several that we can talk to. So there's some vacancies. The library, the MAP fund is another one. I know that's kind of technical. That was something that I was on that I'm off now. So those are several vacancies that are
Venue
probably more
manage-
pressing. Venue management. I know
Advisory Commission. So you-
Councilman Rodriguez has
you're on that
indicated
one?
interest in that.
Yes.
Has indicated
Okay.
interest, but these are kind of assignments that you can figure out amongst yourselves. I'm not going to tell you, but I'm just informing you of some.
Which ones are open?
He'll email those to you
yes.
because we may not
Sorry.
get them all tonight.
Bike ped. Okay.
Right.
Me, for the sake of time, let me follow up with an email, and then you indicate what your interest is, and then we'll follow up maybe the next meeting. So just be thinking about what you might be interested in the meantime, and then we'll come back next month and try to finalize the assignments.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, one final question for Rick. So you're still going to be an alternative for the Compass Board, right? Is that correct? He's not moving from that? Or
No, he needs to because that has to be, so we'll have to talk about that, the alternative
Oh.
for Compass. Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm already
Yeah,
on
he's
it.
already on the board.
Yeah.
So we need an alternative.
Yeah, we do need an alternative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
We also, not through code or ordinance, we have the sister city, it's more like a task force because it doesn't exist by code or ordinance, and Councilman Rodriguez is kind of the liaison. Councilman Skog was also on that, and so,
Yeah.
and there's also a couple zombie commissions we'll come back with, and when I say zombie, not literally zombie abatement or anything like that, but there are commissions in our code and ordinance that are not operational right now, and so part of going through code, like the whole animal thing that we went through, is part of us going through a lot of code and ordinance and trying to clean up a lot of stuff that's old and outdated.
And
so,
Jean is actually co-chairs our
Yes.
Healthy Impact Coalition.
Healthy Impact Coalition,
Healthy
which
Impact.
again, I don't believe that one exists by code or ordinance. It was more like a task force initiative. And so there are several of those as well that are looser. They don't have to post for your public hearing through the clerk, and you can kind of have an unofficial chair keep minutes, but it doesn't meet the requirements of code or ordinance. And so the sister city, that kind of task force, and any other task force, the Crow task force, and there's some others that fall in that category.
And as Jean just said, Healthy Nampa actually does post, even though it's
Yes,
not
well, that's good.
required.
That's good best practices. Yes.
Okay.
Very much appreciated.
Mayor,
Mayor.
point of clarification, can I fix my last name
I am
for
so
people?
glad
Yes.
I was going to ask you to do that. Thank you.
It's really phonetically, it's Mucci,
Mucci, yeah.
Mucci, so no N.
M-U-T.
M-U-T, so Mucci. And I've told other people how to remember it, but not here. Mucci.
Muchy.
Munchie.
Gene.
Apologize.
I prefer that than Munchie.
Yeah,
And,
it-
yeah.
I have
Munchie.
Councilwoman
We
Jean.
have the money. Everyone say it 3 times.
But I heard
Now,
Mucci earlier.
Mucci.
and then
Mucci.
Mu-
It's
Mucci.
Mucci.
Yes,
Mucci,
okay.
thank you.
It sounds like Munchy, but it's Mucci.
Well,
There's
much.
no N
I
in it.
apologize.
No.
No, it's not.
And for me, it's Hogaboom. just in case you're wondering. Some people call me other things. but-
Hogabomb?
The question I was going to ask, are you working on a calendar as far as the city calendar to make sure that there aren't overlapping? Well, like this last Monday, I had an airport commission meeting and I had to miss Arts and Historic Preservation because they were at the same time.
Yeah, so I think that that's a unique challenge because you happen to have an interest on both. And so,
But we are,
Yeah.
yes, I brought it to the attention of TJ, and they're working on it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to step off of a couple of assignments. So is that what's coming forward is
Yes.
what's out there? And, okay.
Yeah. The current vacancies, those who have filled some in, and then we'll move forward. And then the zombie commission boards, we will either just remove them from code enforce and ordinance or reconstitute them if it's the will. So we'll examine that. And that's just part of a process, again, of cleaning up code and ordinance. There's a lot of outdated stuff in our code and ordinance. I shouldn't say a lot, but there's some that needs to be cleaned up. Anyhow.
Thank you.
All right, yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to, we do not have agency or commission reports. We do have staff communications, and we completed the Kirk Carpenter. Let's move to, I think I'm going to move to Doug next. So Ed could go home. Where is Ed? Hi, I couldn't see you out there. Okay, staff report says Doug Racine. It's actually Ed Carras. And Ed, let's go ahead and do your report, and then we'll move. Next, we'll do Tom and then Patrick. I think this is the first time our council's had the opportunity to have Ed present. Is that correct? So Doug, would you like to do the official introduction?
He presented at budget.
But I don't know if he's presented at council, so let's explain who Ed is, if you would, please.
So Ed Karras is our Assistant Director of Finance. He probably has more years of qualification than I do, given his long background, so it's welcome to have him as a part of our finance team. And the policies he introduced tonight really are driven by his long experience. There are issues that I wanted to address. He has the experience to really drive these home quickly and make it more effective for finance to establish standardized processes and policies that help control cost and help deliver a better value for our citizens. So, Ed.
Thank you. Mayor Kling, Council President Haverfield, and distinguished members of the Nampa City Council, I am Ed Karras. I am the city's budget officer in effect. I'm here this evening to present two policies to you, citywide purchasing policy and a position control policy. Both policies are part of a work in progress to compile a comprehensive manual of financial procedures. These policies and the procedures will, if followed diligently by all employees, help to ensure the continued financial stability of the city of Nampa into the future. Each policy sets forth expectations for accountability by providing a documented set of procedures to ensure consistency in applying the policies across all city departments. They are the roadmap for the city's day-to-day financial and administrative operations, ensure compliance with laws and regulations, guide decision-making, and streamline internal processes, ultimately being a vehicle for accountability and trust between our city government and the citizens we serve. The initial policy that we're looking at is a purchasing policy, which will accomplish several objectives. First and foremost, it will leverage the city's buying power. It will provide a responsive public purchasing system, streamline procurement practices to reflect marketplace and industry standards, provide fair and open participation in procurements by all qualified and competent suppliers, contractors, and consultants in accordance with city, state of Idaho, and federal requirements. Being good stewards of the taxpayers' trust by seeking best value in all purchasing. Uphold the highest ethical and professional standards by city officials, excuse me, ensure fairness, equality, and economic inclusion. Establish an internal contract review committee to ensure transparency, and again, best value contracting throughout the city. Those would be the goals of our purchasing policy. Do you have any questions or anything you'd like to address regarding the city's purchasing policy?
I just want to
Mayor
say
Kling.
thank you so much. I am so extremely pleased to have this done, and I thank you for it.
Okay. Second policy I present to you this evening is position control. This policy establishes a mechanism whereby the city can adequately monitor and control positions approved and budgeted for staffing. An accurate and consistent position control system is critical to avoiding budgetary overexpenditure. It is essential in providing decision-making information in support of the city's human resources, financial planning, and management of the growing liability associated with employee cost. Position control links our human resources, budget, and departmental functions to facilitate ongoing accountability and effective fiscal management is an integral part of filling positions. The system provides reporting and analytics to support citywide policy decision-making as we consider our daily position within our financial resources. To facilitate the position control process, the mayor has established a position control committee to review all city department requests for new positions, position changes, reclassifications, reorganizations, salary changes, and cost of living increases, as well as other decisions and actions subject to final decision by the mayor. The policy is a three-pronged approach. From the human resources perspective, the job content is looked at to determine whether a salary adjustment is warranted. From the budget perspective, we look at the funding to ensure that only ongoing resources are used and are sustainable for any position action we take. From the mayor's office perspective, a review of the proposed change is examined from the organizational necessity to meet core legally mandated services. Given that we are headed into uncharted waters regarding budgeted resources and available resources, other cities who are in the same boat are moving toward a position control oriented way of managing their staffing. It's through the position control that we will be able to make sure that whatever we do is sustainable into the future, and that we don't spend money and one-time monies on trying to upgrade positions and hire staff in. And those are the two policies that I wish the council to consider. Again, any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
And I will say this is not an action item, this is a staff report. It is an operational item, so it is not any type of a vote. We just want our council to know what we're working on. And this is part of transparency and stewardship.
Thank you.
I greatly appreciate the work that's been done here.
Mayor,
Yes.
again, I was just going through it as you were talking to, and I like the idea that there's a competitive nature to some of these procurement items as well. That's the way that we're going to be able to realize maybe some savings, is if it's a competitive approach on some of these things. So I'm in favor of that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
This is the beginning. We're beginning to, as we establish priorities, this is critical to future functions. Where the goal Ed and I have is to build processes that outlast us.
I am extremely pleased with the work that Finance Director Doug Racine and Ed Carras are doing. In that, stewardship is so important, and trying to make sure that we are being very careful with how we spend. And so they're digging, they're looking deep, and they're doing a great job at managing the precious tax dollars that we have. So I'm really pleased with it. So thank you so much for your work.
Mayor,
Yes.
I also appreciate it, Doug. I know you were previously at St. Luke's, and this is a lot of the lean methodology that we use. And it's really important when you get to be this size an organization for transparency, but systemization, streamlining, when people get out of bounds with even just small procurement items, that they start to really add up. So I commend you. Well done.
Thank you. Okay, let's go Tom Points. Hi, Nate.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Do you mean that? Or is it still?
It is.
Well, I did bring music, so, and wastewater as usual. So first, as many in the city have heard, we completed the first phase of the wastewater upgrades, and Public Works Information Coordinator, Tiffany McCree, put together a video here for us to kind of
That's great. Wastewater.
So that minute and 18 seconds captures about $37 million of work. Three major components, which included the liquid stream, which was the phosphorus removal process, and then the building that you saw with the equipment, that's for handling all the biosolids, all the solids that have been removed from the waste stream. And then the last part is the digester, the big concrete structure there that breaks down the solids and the liquids before we dry it out and send it out to the landfill. So with phase one, a project that was started construction in 2015 and was completed at the end of 2019, I'm happy to report that the project that was budgeted for $38 million came in almost $1 million under budget, on schedule, and is in operation, and the city is ready to meet their NPDES permit limit for phosphorus that goes into effect May of this year. So we're on schedule, and that's just phase one. I also tonight going to talk about phase two, which makes up the wastewater upgrades project, a project that started back in 2010 and will be completed in 2026 with the phase two work. Phase two, in your packet tonight, you have a new format of financials and project schedule that we will bring forward to council on a monthly basis. And also, it's in a friendly reader news paper magazine style for easy dissemination through the mayor's office or different communication out to the public. Just a few high points on phase two. Later tonight, we will have the first of the phase two projects coming forward with a bid award for construction and construction services. That project is Project Group D. It'll be another digester, a digester that will start construction in March and we also have Project Group E, which is lab admin renovation to the existing lab and admin building. That's planned to start construction in May, which is great. That building, we got all we could out of it. The heater system we're working with facilities on fixing a heater system that's gone out, and our operations team are actually manning it daily to keep it running. So that staff went through a summer without air conditioning. Now they're going through the last half of winter without heating. So we're getting by. We're getting by, and project timing is right at the end of life. I couldn't ask for it any better. And then the third project in phase 2 is Group F. That's a design build project that encompasses a lot of what you saw on the screen, a lot more of that, and then some new stuff like filters, tertiary treatment, new disinfection, UV disinfection, along with a pump station. And combined with the filters and the pump station and the high treatment, that'll deliver the recycled water to the Phyllis Canal for use within the city for irrigation, as well as for future industrial customers. And so one thing in the Phase 2 update, wanted to point out, there is a financial summary. This project is budgeted for $189.9 million, and it outlays the other projects, or the groups of projects within Phase 2. And you should note that at this time, we have about $6.5 million of work under contract. So there is a long ways to go, and we'll be bringing forward Project Group D, which commits about $7 million. So we're getting started. And we couldn't have gotten started without our help from our community, council members, and industrial leaders. So in the packet tonight as well, there's a briefing on the Design Review Committee that this council appointed to oversee the preliminary design. And they were created in the summer of 2018, and the first meeting was held in September. They've met over a dozen times since September, 7 a.m., bright and early, in our fine city library. And just special thanks to the members on that committee. I believe there's some in the audience tonight. Yes.
Larry's there.
Larry is there.
There's one. Is that? Yeah, Larry, Mr. Larry Olmsted.
Doctor.
Dr. Larry Olmsted. And he and his other citizens, industrial members, have been a great contribution to controlling costs on this enormous project for the city. So with that, I would stand for any questions.
Seeing none, Nate, thank you. You guys have done a great job. And again, on that reuse permit, I commend you, and I think I did at the last one, but we're so proud of the work that's been done. And Larry, thank you. You're the only one that's still here tonight, but those early mornings, and you've been a very valuable member. Thank you. And
Yeah, I was going to say, he comes for the maple bars. Yeah.
And the same with Randy and Darrell that have been sitting on that and attending all those meetings. It accomplished and is still accomplishing what I had intended, and that is the citizen oversight to ensure that we're really being, again, good stewards of those dollars. And so, great job.
And Mayor, I'll just want to appreciate, because I think I'm the 7 a.m. Initiator.
Yes.
That you're, yeah. So anyway, I just appreciate accommodating kind of my schedule so that we're doing those. But we get it done, right?
Mayor, Council,
7 a.m.
it's been a pleasure. It's been a great experience. And
Sometimes the elevator's not working at that time, but other than that, we're great, right?
And you know, that falls with me. But
I'm good now.
Yeah. So.
Mayor,
Thank
Nate, we had originally talked, I think about a month ago, about the potential reuse of the biosolids for a farmer that was looking at it. Did that ever happen?
Mayor and councilman, so we're continuing to work with that farmer. We have not finalized the plan. There's two parts of the plan. The city developed a plan that was accepted and approved by DEQ. The farmer has an obligation on his end to complete a plan, and we're working with him to get that through the DEQ office.
Is it, again, that was a Class B biosolid, is that correct?
That, yes.
That he was able to take?
It is a Class B product that the city makes, and that
Right.
would be allowed to be applied to his dry
Right. So
farm.
there's no further, we don't have to get to a Class A, we can, he can use the Class B, and that's the main thing that we were looking at is another potential revenue, well, I don't know if it'll be a revenue source, but at least the biosolids, we won't be paying to take it to the
Cost
landfill.
savings.
Cost savings of not having to take it to landfill, so that's a positive.
That is especially, I could add that Pickle Butte, the county landfill, has been we're very gracious for their help this last month, as currently the city has 2 landfills, one out in Elmore County and one here in our county at Pickle Butte. Elmore County landfill has stopped taking our solids for other reasons. And Pickle Butte has allowed us to start going to them 5 days a week, whereas before we were restricted to 2. So they've been very helpful with us.
Okay, thanks.
Nate, thank you so much. Patrick? Patrick, thank you for providing us with an update.
Mayor and council, I'll be brief. It's a little late. I wanted to bring you up to date on our Nampa Development Services Center building project. We're about a month from substantial completion of the tenant improvement. If you recall, engineering and public works had moved into the second floor of this building, and we're remodeling the first floor and the basement of the building, which is approximately 22,000 square feet. After the next 30 days, we'll reach substantial completion. We'll have a couple weeks of installing new and reused furniture that came with the building. And then we'll start moving people in the middle of April, with those moves nearing completion by the middle of May. So I'm just going to bring you just a few progress photos. And so this is we were able to add parking and revise curbs around the building, take out some landscaping right next to the building, and add approximately, I believe, 18 stalls. We are still going to be taking down the canopy and be able to add another 10 stalls, which we desperately need in order to accommodate all of the employees of the building, plus all the service vehicles we need to park there, and still maintain at least 20 visitor parking stalls for our service counters. This is looking from the front door over to what will be the planning and zoning and engineering counter. This is looking back the other way to the building department counter, and all the building department offices and cubicles are to your right there. And then the hallway or the door just to the left there goes into economic development. And then you'll go down the hallway to plan review facilities, and then environmental compliance, which handles all the erosion permits. Here's our new large conference room on the first floor. And this is where the plans reviewers will be, both engineering and building plans reviewers. Here's the basement area where we'll put all of our building inspectors. And this is where we will put the erosion control inspectors and quite a few of our facilities folks that have to vacate the Family Justice Center basement. And if you recall, around $477,000 worth of the work was appropriated from the general fund to re-roof the building and replace all the rooftop equipment and all the coils and piping in the building. So we'll have a new HVAC system and a new roof on the building. So this is looking towards some of the disconnects and some of the new equipment. Here's a shot of the new roof and some more air handlers down kind of on the southwest side. And then here's going back toward the northeast side of the building, all the new air handlers and compressor condensing units for the inside air handlers of the building. And that's all I have. So do you have any questions?
Mayor, I have a question. As far as change orders, have you had any, where are you at as far as costs?
Yes, we have had change orders. We are still under budget. Our change orders are tracking right about 4%.
Unforeseen? Were they unforeseen conditions or?
Yes, the majority were unforeseen conditions, and we had a few change orders in data and electrical because when we went into this, we didn't have all of our furniture plan done. So we had some electrical and data changes that we had to make to accommodate some office layouts that we had
So
to change.
performance by the general contractor, has it been good?
It's actually been really good, and they've been able to keep their schedule.
Okay.
And even after some setbacks with
So you've been
schedule early
tracking,
on,
time-wise, they're still on, you said they're on schedule?
they are on schedule to meet their contractual obligation, correct?
So final question.
With their change orders.
So is there liquidated damages if they can't perform at the end?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
Yes, there are.
But you're not to that point yet?
We are not at that point. They will be done, and then we will have about a 5-day clean and touch-up paint, and then we'll go back in with the movers, bringing in the existing furniture that we pulled out of the building. We'll be reinstalling that, and then we'll also have delivery trucks bringing in the new cubicles and new office furniture to augment that.
So you're about a month away from substantial completion, is that what you
Yeah,
said?
substantial completion will be on March 17th.
Is that when you do your walkthrough?
We will do a pre-punch walkthrough a week prior, and so that when we get to substantial completion, all the touch-up painting will be completed by that time. The only thing that we have some long lead time items with doors, so we may have some doors that we have to hang after that if they don't make delivery, but we're going to be fine with that because they can still hang doors and not ding up things.
And you're holding 5% retainage then?
Correct, yes, per the contract we are.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome.
So Mayor, if I may, and Patrick, so P&Z here, what's happening with this space in this building?
The finance department is moving to this side, and accounts payable is coming out of the utility billing to where what we're going to do is achieve
So this
all
building
of.
behind us.
Right, but utility billing will still be there, but accounts payable is also there. And so this is gonna put all of finance together on that side of the building. The clerk's office is going to that side of the building. HR is coming to this side of the building, so that we're vacating the economic development is moving in, and then fire will be. Mhm. Yes, yes. Thank you, Patrick.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. Okay, so needless to say, it's 10 o'clock, and we are just stepping into new business. We have 26 new business items to accomplish tonight, plus a few unfinished business items and an executive session. So it's going to be a very late night. And I see some people that I don't know that are here, like you guys right there. Thank you for being here. Are you here for a specific reason? Do you want to go home? You may. Feel free to. Oh. Thank you for staying. That is great, but you are,
What you're saying is we're very entertaining, right?
thank you for your interest. It's appreciated. Thank you. If anyone else feels guilty about leaving, please know that if Patrick's out.
So Mayor, since we have may have a revenue challenge, maybe we can start charging if we're so
Yeah.
entertaining.
All right. Okay, so let's go with item 5.1 for new business. This is the appointment of Kelsey Para and Chastity Emerson to the Nampa Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mucci?
Mucci.
Mucci?
Mucci.
Yes.
Just think of
Levi?
small.
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
And I just want to say, I don't think they're here, but I so appreciate their service and willingness to step up. That's awesome.
Yeah, you're crazy. They are.
Okay, so the second item is an action item. This is the Second Amendment to American Cleaning janitorial contract to add services at the Nampa Development Center. This has been approved by legal and is approved
So
in the
move.
FY20 budget.
Yep.
Thank you.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call. Thank you, Patrick.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Did we get everybody? Okay.
Yeah.
Item 5.3 on the agenda is an action item. This is to authorize the mayor to sign a professional services contract agreement for building inspection services in the amount of and not to exceed $100,000 with Safe Built for the Amazon Fulfillment Center construction project. Are there any questions? Do we need Patrick to present on this?
The only question, Mayor, so this, are we outsourcing to Safe Built? Is that what this is?
Mayor and Councilman Haverfield, yes, that's correct.
Okay. And it's up to 100,000. Do you think it'll go to that much?
Mayor and Councilman Haverfield, I do not believe so. I believe it'll go more, maybe to the $60,000 to $80,000 range. And it's all dependent upon how fast just the workflow. Right now, they're going to start doing 24/7 pours in about a week on all the
Right.
floor decks. And then there'll be a lull, and then we'll come back for the framing. So I think we won't have to go over the 100,000, and we may never touch it.
So it's a T&M not to exceed
It's a
100,000.
T&M not to exceed.
Okay. And the time frame, does it state in here?
Yes, the time frame would be starting tomorrow, and it would be going through, I believe, October, well, I have it right here, October 15th, I believe.
So
October 31st, I'm sorry, October 31st.
So how often will they be on the site?
Initially, they'll be out 3 days a week with our own staff. We have another outsource contractor, Jim Main, will be doing
Right.
Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays, those 3 days. So they'll be doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because Jim can't do that. He has some other projects. We originally were wanting to use Jim for the whole thing, but he had some projects come up that got in the way, and that's why we're using Safe Build to augment what he's doing.
So are they providing special inspection services through MTI or someone like that?
Mayor Randy Haverfield, it's through Strata.
Strata?
Through Strata, all the
So
third
you're
party.
keeping those reports and,
Keeping those reports, and also the other, we do some double up on concrete and rebar and things like that, because we want to make sure that that the third party inspection service is, I guess, doing their job.
right, but Amazon's paying for that.
They actually, Panattoni is paying for
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay. I don't believe we've had a motion yet.
No, we haven't.
Okay, who would like to?
Mayor Kling, I'll make the motion to authorize the request with time and materials not to exceed $100,000 with Safe Built LLC.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Okay, the next item, and thank you, Matt, go ahead and make your way up, is an action item. This is to adopt the City of Nampa's Community Development Block Grant Program Year 2020 Application Guidelines. Matt, thank you.
Of course.
I'm so moving on it. We can have discussion if there's a second, but
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? And for those in the audience, it's in the packet.
yeah.
And that's why that motion can take place, because
And
of
we've been
people
through it.
reading it.
Some of us have been through it a few times.
6 years.
And it's a little, I don't know what changes you've made this year. Do you want?
There was a standard changes, which are updating dates and deadlines, volunteer labor rates, and then we try to streamline the process a little bit this year to make the initial application process a little less laborious, and so hopefully it will entice other people to come in and apply. And then once they're sort of approved, then we'll have a more substantial list of things that they need to provide. They have to certify that they can provide them up front, but they don't have to make the big jump in the initial application phase. And then once they're finally approved, they'll need to provide the remaining documentation. And then we've tried to simplify the amount of staff time that's required for city applications as well, so it's not so much of a drain on city staff for things that they
And
want.
as you all remember last year, because we had such a huge packet, we are working to streamline it. And then I really appreciate the process we're going through, which is getting some preliminary ideas before we make people go through the full process. Because it's a very cumbersome, lengthy process. So we're going to try to get a good idea from council where we're headed, and then we'll come back again, but at least we won't make everybody go through the full application process.
Right.
So we have an idea. So any other questions, discussion?
Call for the vote.
Okay, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Just as a matter of, I received word, I think Thursday or Friday, we have received 801,000 this year. So we did get a slight bump up with the increased funding that the CDBG program had. So I guess good news is we're up about 6 to 8 grand.
Yeah, what's the breakdown on that? How much for, not, I mean, there's two divisions, right?
So 20%ish will go to
20% of that.
administration,
Right,
15% to public service, and the rest to what would be sidewalk improvements, park improvements, low-income housing project
Thanks.
improvements.
And that said, census. Our census impacts these dollars.
They
And
will, yes.
so important that we get the word out and we get everybody to participate because that's really, really important because these dollars get determined by the outcome of the census for Nampa.
So this year is still going back to 10 years ago?
I think they're probably looking now at
2010?
an American Community Survey, probably from 2015 to 17, somewhere in there. But our population, it's all a formula basis, so depending on our population, our poverty penetration, I think is one of the terms I use, and then the number of houses below, I think 1968 or something like that. All that stuff kind of gets weighted, and then they come up with a number, and I think it goes on from there. How much more they sort of pare down when they have new communities coming on, communities that are giving away their entitlement, and then they just end up sorting out all the gravy. Yeah, but we got an increase this year. Last year was a slight decrease, so I'm excited to get a little more instead of less. So.
Thank you very
That's it.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, item 5.5 on the agenda is an action item, and this is to authorize the mayor and the Parks and Rec director to sign a contract with Cascade Enterprises for the construction of Phase 1B for Midway Park in the amount of $1,104,000. This is budgeted in the park impact fees for FY20 and approved by legal.
So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion or question?
I wish there were more ball fields going in with this. That's the next request.
Babe Ruth could use them.
Pardon?
Yeah,
Babe Ruth could use them.
Yeah.
Okay, seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Darren, why don't you go ahead and come forward? And this next
Yeah.
one is an action item. It's the discussion concerning the Nampa Farmers Market request to waive user fees for Lloyd Square rental. And the reason we put action item on these is because if an action is taken, it has to be on there by state statute, but it may be just a discussion. So, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We're coming here just to discuss the farmers market. They have traditionally rented Lloyd Square, and we charge them the same fees that we always have. All nonprofit groups, including churches, receive 30% discount off the normal price. That is the price that we offered farmers market. They haven't explained that they have any kind of hardship, so I don't know if it's more just principle. So we don't support waiving all the fees, but we do support giving the typical 30% discount, which we give to all like groups. How Parks and Recreation is funded is we're funded basically in 3 ways. Mostly we're funded by tax dollars, and then we have user fees, and then sponsorships and grants and things that come in like that. And so not charging fees would put more of a burden on the tax dollars that need to support our tax or the Parks and Recreation operation. And so the mayor has asked us to look at other communities, what they do. If you have questions, Jennifer Vanderpool is here. She did reach out to other communities to get the information that how they handle farmers markets. And I think in short, everybody does it just a little bit different. And so our recommendation is that we continue to give them the 30% discount like we always have. But we do respect in the work that what they do. But ultimately, if this body or the city council chooses to waive those fees, we'll certainly work with that.
So Mayor, if I may, what do you know what our revenue was from them this past year?
Right about 3,000 is what
So it's
turns out.
not a huge amount.
And it comes to
So are we breaking even on maintenance and garbage and cleaning up?
the garbage, the cleanup? They're tax supported entities, and so it would be. I don't know if we're.
So we're doing okay with that, or you think
We feel
we're
comfortable.
subsidizing to a certain extent?
I would say all parks, yes, because you have like the mowing.
I'm looking
and
at- okay.
Extents, yeah, so.
So currently with this rate, we're subsidizing even.
I would say so. Yeah, all parks are. And then, I should point out is that, in turn, the farmer's market charges the vendors. And if you figure out what the charges are, it's about probably less than $2.50 each week per vendor to be there for the space. And so it's not a big cost to the vendors, but that's how it would probably break down about that way.
Mayor
So it's
Klein.
30% right now.
Yeah, so,
Discount
and
currently.
I guess that is, I did give a little bit of, we did raise fees just about a month ago or so. And so the compromise that we made with them is this year, we'll charge them last year's rate with a 30% discount so they could have some time to make more of an adjustment. We signed a 2-year lease agreement. They've already signed the lease agreement. I think why they signed the lease agreement is it's important for them to lock up the space for sure to get it. And then if the city council chose to waive the fees, there's like a 14-day notice that they can terminate the contract. But so that kind of explains that. And then next year we would charge them full price with the 30% discount. So on the memo I sent you, let's see, that is, per week, right now it's $105 per week, plus a one-time $250 permit fee for the whole group, not per vendor, but for the whole group. And then next year, instead of $105, their fee will be $140.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this would only be an action item if the council were asking for them to change what they've already, the contract that is signed. Otherwise, it's an informational item.
I'm not in favor of changing, so.
Mayor Kling.
Okay.
What about the parking? Is it free on Saturdays? I know it's posted to the west there, and
I don't know, Beth. It's free on
Jennifer will
Saturdays.
know.
Okay.
free?
It's free.
So there's no towing in that one parking lot to the west?
Thank you.
So the Long Branch lot, if you're familiar with the space, the Long Branch lot, which is just right across 13th Avenue, am I right?
13th.
13th.
Yeah.
That one is free parking on Saturdays, so they are allowed to park there. Farmers Market did request that we post signage saying that it is allowed for free parking because right now it does not have signage. I have been in contact with Downtown Association, and they are working on signage to accommodate that request. So that is true. The dirt lot, as you know, you cannot park on.
That's owned,
Campus.
privately owned,
Privately
and
owned,
it's,
yes.
right. And thank you for working with them on, because there was going to be another change in those signs for the timing, and we need to accomplish it all in one sign redo. And so I have a thought on the timing on the signs, but then it needs to clearly say free parking. We want to encourage people to park downtown, and so the goal is that our city-owned lots are not a deterrent. We need to be able to say, come in and park. And currently, they say you can park after 6. I think we need to say after 5, even though they're leased, because it's hunting for a spot. And most of the time, after 5, there could be someone coming in, but since it's a hunt for your spot, I think that if we can get people in after 5, Monday through Friday, and free on Saturday, it helps support downtown.
Yeah.
So Mayor, it's
Thank
after
you.
10. Jennifer, you want to hold up your left hand?
Oh, no.
Yeah. Okay. Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Okay.
Okay.
She wants a present, by the way, from all of you.
Give her a button.
Birthday present.
You got some buttons in the drawer, right?
Well, I don't know. I haven't looked. Okay, so I think this item, there's no action required, correct? Okay, so we've done 5.7, on to 5.8. This is to authorize the mayor to sign the agreement with Life Safety. Thank you guys for waiting so long. I'm so sorry we didn't do yours earlier. This is to authorize the mayor to sign the agreement with the Life Safety Inspection Vault for the cloud-based reporting software for the fire protection systems. And this is the follow-up to what we approved earlier.
So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
5.9 is an ordinance change, and this is the first reading that we're going to request to pass under suspension of rules, and it's amending Title II, Chapter 10 pertaining to commission membership, terms of office, and vacancies for the Nampa Arts and Historic Preservation Commission. Are there any questions about this? Beth, are you here to tell us? Okay, thank you.
Mayor, if you want me to explain, when we were going through some of the commission work that Rick described, realized that this is the only commission I believe that has term limits on it. And one of the challenges with this commission in particular is that as part of our certified local government from the State Historic Preservation Office, we have very specific requirements for the makeup and composition of that board. We only have so many architects and lawyers in Nampa to solicit for participation in that and those expertise that are required. And so we wanted to make sure that we have the opportunity, if we have willing members on that commission that want to continue to serve beyond just 2 terms, that we allow that. In addition, the state provides grant funding through their sources for commission members to attend training, both national trainings as well as statewide trainings. So we're able to invest dollars into our commission members and their education and being involved in this commission. And we would hate to lose that expertise and knowledge in a shorter period of time if they're willing and the council is willing to keep them on that board. So we wanted to just eliminate that term limit requirement.
Mayor,
Thank you.
I saw that there was a posting for 3 available positions. Does this help solve that by being able to retain those that would be stepping off if
Mayor
this is
Council,
passed?
there are 2 members that are currently up, and part of the challenge too is they haven't necessarily been served 6 years, but when we reconstituted between the arts and historic preservation, joining them together, I think one of those members that's up served a 1-year term initially, and then is just finishing a 3-year term. So he's only been on there for 4 years and is interested in, they would have to reapply just as we are doing with all of the commissions. But I know that at least one of those gentlemen are interested in reapplying.
And one of them needed to be an architect or qualified as such. Does that mean that Doug Houston's stepping off?
I believe the one position that is open is Rogers, and I think he is a retired
Architect?
architect.
Okay, so he qualifies. All right, thanks.
Thank you. So we would look for a motion to, and actually to request, well, we need to read the ordinance. Thank you. I just was missing that. Thank you.
An ordinance enacted by the Nampa City Council amending Title II, Chapter 10, Section 210-2 of the Nampa City Code pertaining to the Commission's membership, terms of office, and vacancies of the Nampa Arts and Historic Preservation Commission, providing for an effective date, providing for severability, and repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith.
Mayor Kling, I'll make a motion to pass the ordinance as read under suspension of rules.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Item 510 is an action item, and this is that the council authorize the mayor to sign the first addendum to the memorandum of understanding for Amazon. It's been reviewed by legal. Tom, is there anything that we should know about this MOU?
Mayor, Council, so I'll answer any questions that you have, but just in summary, this is a clause that's allowed in the original agreement. If right-of-way is not available, we could do it in cash payment, and this is what this is. So it's $250,000 of payment for some road widening between on Robin or Star between Treasure Valley Way and then the railroad. So we've ran the traffic analysis and determined this is not an impact to the overall flow of traffic in the area. And this is there's a lot of utility conflicts in there that make this very cost prohibitive for very little benefit. So that we could use this funds for some other work in the corridor, which we're discussing right now with the state.
So Mayor, so you're just moving, so you're moving this around. I know Sorrento is not part of the city. What responsibility have they had or have for right away or whatever. This is running in front of them, on the side of them, I mean?
Yeah, Councilor Bruner, Mayor, so this is right next to their facility. So, and it's really not so much about, there's a lot of utilities in this particular section.
Right.
So that's the conflicts that we're trying to avoid.
So I guess my question is, and whether it's this or something else, is Sorrento helping us? I mean, because the traffic's going to, of course, be increasing. Are they wanting to help us improve any of the roads or way or anything of that sort?
We're going to meet with them later in the next couple of weeks, not specifically about this area, but it's more about on Franklin, because they've expressed some concerns about employee parking along their road frontage and the signal there, but that's.
So they're not expecting us or Amazon, they're willing to partner with us? Is that what you're kind of understanding with this meeting?
Right, that was part of the original, if you're planning and zoning, when one of the motions that they had to move forward was that we work with Lactalis on traffic impacts, which was what we're doing, and the intent of that motion.
Thanks.
Yeah.
They're not helping fund any, are
No,
they?
they're not
No.
helping fund anything, Mayor.
No, when we talk about working together, there's no funding coming from them. And as you know, I believe they're in the county technically, they're not city. And we are going to run into a little bit of a challenge with one of their entrances that we're going to have to figure out how to manage. Because they have an employee parking really close to the intersection at Robinson, which is Robinson Star and Franklin.
So we are not, okay, I mean, this is being a little facetious here, but so we're getting no tax money from them at all, but we're going to have to improve and spend money to improve their improved access to their employee parking? Is that what I'm hearing?
We would, we don't know what the details of the negotiation are, but if they wanted to donate some right-of-way, which would be a benefit to the city, then we could trade off some improvements in that way, but we're still working that out.
Okay.
Mayor Kling. So the 200,000 plus in lieu payment, is that in addition to the 5.5 million in lieu payment that's a part of the original? Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, I'd stand for a motion. Or what's the will of the council?
Mayor Kling, I'll make the motion to allow you to sign the first addendum to the memorandum of understanding for Amazon as proposed to us this evening.
I'll think of that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any additional discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Councilman Bauer, we're going to get to you in a motion or a second because I know you were on that one. Yeah. So
Anytime you want to shut me up.
he was ready. It's,
Yeah, good try.
Seriously?
Good try.
there you go. Okay.
Got to be
item-
quick. You got to be quick.
Item 511 is an action item. This is to authorize the mayor to sign the memorandum of understanding between the city of Nampa and the Nampa Highway District for the intersection improvements at Idaho Center Boulevard and Cherry Lane.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Item 512 is an action item for the council to award a bid and authorize the mayor to sign the contract for the Middleton Road Rebuild Project with Granite Excavation. This was approved in the FY20 budget.
No one's going to do it, huh? So move.
No,
Second.
Wait a minute.
Okay, you may have discussion time.
Okay, discussion.
I'm thinking of the wastewater.
You're thinking of,
Yeah, I'm thinking of the wastewater, because there's one coming up where there's okay, sorry. I'm
We
good.
are, on the wastewater, we will have discussion.
Yes.
Yes, and it's going to be a presentation for all four. Yeah.
Mayor?
Yes,
So we're on item 512, right?
yes, we are.
Okay, I did have a question.
Okay.
I'm just enlarging this so I can actually read it. On the bullet point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, says the road rebuild phase will include all other work items, including approximately 4575 linear feet of roadway reconstruction, minor widening to accommodate a center turn lane and wider shoulders and underground utility improvements. Isn't that right by, I believe it was Meadowcrest subdivision that was built?
Daniel's coming up.
Mayor, Councilman Levi, there are portions of it that are adjacent to Meadowcrest that will tie into the improvements that Meadowcrest has been doing adjacent to their development.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion or questions? Okay, and roll call.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Okay, so items 513, well, that's zone F. Okay, and then we're going to go down to, yeah, good grief, I lost track of numbers here, which one? It'll be the 15, 19, 20. So, Tom, are you going to speak on item 13, council to award the bid and authorize the mayor to sign the contract for zone F sewer rehab, the FY20 priority area project with pipeline inspections? Or council, do you have questions on it? No questions?
I'll make a motion to approve, Mayor.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or any questions? Roll call?
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
And Tom, thank you for just staying there. We'll just
stay
go
here, yeah.
through because we've got a whole bunch coming up. So item 514 is the council to award a bid and authorize the mayor to sign the contract for the Flamingo Avenue Waterline Replacement Project with Cougar Excavation in the amount of $684,608.
My question was answered on that previously. I'll make the motion to accept the bid.
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Bauer. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, roll call?
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Item 515 is an action item to authorize the engineering division to proceed with the formal bidding process for the irrigation water quality FY20 project, which was approved in the budget.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Item 516 is an action item to actually request council reject a bid for the Orchard Avenue and Elijah Drain Culvert Replacement Project. Does council have any questions for Tom Points on this particular item?
I just say thank you for not moving ahead with this, just to be doing it with a high bid, so.
You're welcome.
Make the motion for the rejection.
Second.
It's been moved and
There
seconded.
you go.
That's the second one he's had.
Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Item 517 is an action item to authorize the mayor to sign an agreement to waive the first right of refusal and terminate the lease with DMC Air dated January 1, 2017, and the Nampa Municipal Airport Land Lease Agreement with Jonathan Miller and David P. Miller effective February 28, 2020 for Lot 2268. And this has been reviewed and approved by legal.
So moved.
Second.
And I would like to share something with the rest of the council in a moment of brevity. That for the last 3 years, this little dog's been running around the airport, and they finally caught him. So he's gone on to a new home. So but
So
Are you
it's-
serious?
that little character was 3 years.
So
El
is
Chapo,
is he at
El
the
Chapo.
Haverfield residence, or
No,
where is
no.
he? Okay.
No, he's found a very good home.
He's a real dog,
He was a real dog.
and he lived there.
He lived there, yeah.
And somebody fed him?
He fed himself somehow, but he was kind of a menace running across the
So did we name him after all of these years?
El Chapo.
El Chapo?
El Chapo. Oh, my goodness.
So I want to know who chased him over these years.
I can tell you.
Monty did it.
Monty
No,
did.
no, not Monty.
That's his exercise routine.
He was actually apprehended by the maintenance technician, John Zeisler. He'd been roaming out there for 3 years,
Wow.
causing all kinds of headaches for the pilots, so
Anyway,
Well, what were
I digress.
What
All
were
for the
our police
motion.
department, our dog folks doing for 3 years?
They couldn't catch him. El Chapo.
You know, it just reminds you that we're still somewhat of a small community, that we can
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
enjoy this and laugh about it. That is funny. Oh, my.
That's good.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Here we go, 18 now.
Okay, so item 518 is an action item, and this is for the council to award a bid and authorize the mayor to sign the contract for the construction of the Nampa wastewater treatment plant Phase 2 upgrades. Group D primary digester, number 5 with Ewing Company, in the amount of $6,425,000.
So,
So are we going to talk about item 18, 19? Do you have
yeah.
all of them?
So,
Okay.
Mayor Council, we're gonna talk about 18, 19, 20, 21, kind of just do an overview of what, because there's 4 right in a row, and Nate was gonna come up and do that discussion. So go ahead, Nate.
All right, Mayor, Council, so those 4, this and the next 3 business items are all related to the Phase 2 wastewater upgrades, Project Group D, primary digester number 5. This item here is the bid award for the construction of digester number 5. We opened bids, had received 4 bid packages. The lowest bid did not include a sub-consultant for electrical work, which under Idaho code is a protected trade and must be included in the bid package. We worked with the city attorney to determine what the options would be going forward. After evaluating the bid package and options, it was determined that, 1, the low bid was non-responsive, so it has to be thrown out. So that leaves us with 2 options. And Mark, you add in if I get off track here, but option 1 is to award to the next lowest responsive bid. In this case, that's Ewing Construction. The second option would be to throw out all the bids and rebid the project. This is the idea of awarding to the second lowest bidder when the first is non-responsive is something that the city council has been presented by staff in the recent months, and council did award to the second low bidder. Staff's position is that, as you saw tonight, many of the bids in the city, we're getting good competition, we're getting a good number of contractors, and that is a lot to do with the bidding climate in Nampa. It was not always that way in Nampa if you go back, say, 10 years. So staff is concerned with throwing out all the bids. It creates an uncertain bidding condition for contractors. Though you can see for yourself, council members, that there is a $500,000 difference between the non-responsive low bid and the second place bid. All that being said, with the overall project budget for this digester at $12,396,000, and you can see that the estimated project costs are at $8,683,000 in your packet, that we're well within budget. Also, the engineer's estimate was above, or essentially the same as the construction bid, so we feel like we got a competitive price. We also are on a tight time frame. This project was brought forward and bid first in the Phase 2 project to capture savings, and I think when you look at the project budget to the award amount before you, you can come to the reasonable conclusion that we got a great price for this project. By delaying the project and rebidding, we start to compact this project into our $100 to $150 million of work remaining, which creates other complications. So before you tonight, we're asking that the construction bid award go to Ewing Construction for $6,425,581.94. And with that, there comes some legal language that needs to be acknowledged. And I don't know, Mark, if it's adequate that it's stated in here, or do we need to read the whole legal jargon?
I think I've got it covered.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's two, if you do refer to the actual written request, there is some language that would need to be
right.
included in the motion.
So Mayor, if I may, and Nate, before starting, just some clarification, this may be Mark thing too. So I'm just looking here. I was not seeing, so what with Ewing, what was the breakdown as far as the cost of electrical subcontractors? Since that was not included with the original bidder of JC Contractors. What is the cost of that for Ewing?
It's
Mayor,
naming.
Councilman Bruner, I can say both Ewing, in Ewing's bid, they listed AME as the subcontractor.
But there's not a
In
price.
discussions with JC, they intended to use AME electrical, the same electrical. The issue is that in the bid package presented to the city, the JC constructors did not write in the electrical. And by code, state code, that is a requirement.
Okay, so their overall price, they were including that, they just didn't list it. Is that what I'm hearing?
You didn't list the sub.
Correct.
But in their price, which was $500,000 less, that was actually, in their eyes, being included in the bid.
Mayor, Councilman, I can speak to my conversation with JC, and yes, they wanted to honor their bid, and they said the electrical work was in their bid. But when reviewing with the city attorney, the state code's very clear that if electrical sub is not listed in the bid package received by the city, that bid cannot be accepted.
Okay, and I know the advice is to not do a whole rebidding process. So is there any, I'm just not quite $500,000 here, okay? So that's why I'm not getting my head quite around. So if we started the bidding process again, JC constructors would be able to rebid, right? And they could list that in their bid proposal. And I realize there's no guarantee that it'd be the same bidding price as they originally. And I realize the timeline. And I guess I maybe need to be educated of what type of timeline. I'm just not into throwing $500,000 away if there's a way of getting around this.
Mayor, if I might, there's two options. Ewing's bid was responsive. It's the next lowest bid. It could be accepted tonight. The other option is to reject all the bids and start over. And so you know, my response would be there's not a way around this. The law is very clear that the failure to identify by name the electrical subcontractor renders the bid void. It's non-waivable, and the law is clear on that. What happens if it's rebid is unknown. You know, and I would encourage council not to think about it as, well, we'll just reject the bid, we'll rebid it, we'll probably get all the same bids from the same subcontractors with this problem fixed. There's no guarantee that occurs. Nate can speak to it a little bit, and maybe Councilman Haverfield too. Rejecting the bids is not something that our construction community likes to see. And so there may be some policy reasons beyond saving money why we want to preserve these bids. I'm not as conversant in all those issues as maybe others here are, but there is a potential.
Matt's out here too. Maybe he could speak to that. I don't know. I'm struggling with this. So.
Mayor Kling?
Yeah.
And I would entertain, or basically state too, I don't think it's fair to the others that have put in the time to bid the project to reject their bids because of a non-respondent general contractor that didn't provide the information that was necessary for him to provide for the naming law. And that's really what it come down to. It's not that he left out $500,000 in an electrical bid, it's across his whole bid process. And he might come back with another bid, reanalyzing what he's done and come in higher than he came in before. So to delay the process, knowing that we still have bids that are under the estimated amount, still makes sense to proceed further on this, knowing that we still have a good bid and we have a very responsive bidder. And so I'm okay with moving forward under those conditions. It's not always that in the regular, if you're in a private entity, you don't have to take the low bidder. You can move with whoever you want to. This, we do have to work with the lowest responsive bidder. This company wasn't. So we're just choosing to go to the next.
Well, I'd like to ask a question about the request for qualifications, because we went through an RFQ first, is that correct? With these particular entities?
Mayor, for this construction project, it was publicly advertised as a lowest bid through the public procurement. So it was not a qualification based and then get everybody through the door that's qualified and then get prices. This was open to Idaho Public Works licensed contractors. And then the bids we received, there was no question of qualifications, though that could be a legal review if you received a bid from a contractor you were unfamiliar with or were familiar with to where you questioned their qualifications. But
So my next question is, we're familiar with each one of these, I believe, is that correct? Okay, and they're qualified bidders, right? Okay.
That includes J.C.
And Ewing? Okay.
Both J.C. and Ewing have done work at the plant, have done acceptable work, so that we don't have any.
Okay,
There'll be other projects out there.
thank you.
Do they go through a bid service? Is that what they're normally doing? Just going through the regular bid service? No, they probably all have the same numbers.
Oh, Mayor, Councilman, so as far as how did they, I'm not sure I
The
understand.
major
the question.
subs, they go through Intermountain Contractor. You know, there are plan rooms that offer a service, and so I would imagine they all pretty much with the major subs go there to get those numbers.
Yeah, for, Mayor, Councilman, what I can speak to is both, as Tom mentioned, both J.C. Constructors and Ewing worked on Phase 1. And they brought to the table some of the same subconsultant contractors and some different. So they kind of have their own groups that they work with that are out of the local subcontracting industry. So.
Mayor Kling, I'm ready to make a motion, whether it gets a second or not, at least due to the lateness of the evening. I would make a motion that the council award the bid and authorize you to sign the contract for the construction of Nampa Wastewater Treatment Plant Phase 2 Upgrades Project Group D, primary digester number 5 with the Ewing Company in the amount of $6,425,581.94, rejecting the apparent low bid of J.C. Constructors. The reason for the rejection is because there was a failure of them to list all the subcontractors in their bid form.
Second.
I think,
Second.
Jacob, yeah. So I just want to clarify that in our packet, it was a little longer than that. Does that motion suffice?
Yeah, I think if I could just propose a friendly amendment to the motion, that you just adopt the reasoning that's set forth in the staff report.
With everything that I said, adding that we adopt what was added in the staff report.
Thank you.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or questions on this topic? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
No.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Okay, so moving to 519 on the agenda. So do you want to report on this before we?
At your pleasure, Mayor.
Okay, well, this is an action item. It's to authorize the Mayor and Public Works Director to sign the professional services agreement and task order with CH2M Hill for the Nampa wastewater Phase 2 upgrades, Group D software integration services, and this is approved in the 20 budget. Are there any questions on this? Do you need a report?
No. I'll make the motion to authorize you to sign that professional services agreements as listed with CH2M in the amount of $227,715. Time and materials not to exceed.
Okay, second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi? Bauer?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
So item 520 on the agenda is an action item, and this is to authorize the Mayor and Public Works Director to sign the professional services agreement and task order with Stantec Consulting for the Nampa wastewater Phase 2 upgrades, Project Group D services during construction.
Is Michael still here?
He is.
Then a no.
Second.
You woke him up. He was asleep.
Yeah, keep him awake.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to authorize the Public Works Director to sign a professional services agreement with Stantec Consulting Services in the amount of $402,438.
Second.
Well, if Michael's taking us all out to dinner, that's fine.
Donuts
Just
in the
kidding.
morning.
We know that's not legal, so.
No, it's his good leadership.
It's a good leader.
It's a good leadership book, yeah. Okay, so is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Item 521 is an action item to authorize the Mayor and Public Works Director to sign the professional services agreement and task order with Brown and Caldwell for the Nampa wastewater Phase 2 upgrades, owners to service the owner's advisor services for Project Group D and Project Group D and Project Group E as approved in the FY20 budget.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Question. Is this for the whole duration of the project, or is it just for that Project Group D?
Mayor, Councilman, so Project Group D has a construction window from March of 2020 until the end of 2021. Project Group E, the lab admin, which has a 12-month window, which lives within the construction window of the overlapping Group D. So to capture the efficiency of having Brown and Caldwell on site,
Right.
this allows us to capture that by including those construction services of like services for both projects. And to answer your question, it does not contract, it does not obligate the city to hire Brown and Caldwell for all other remaining work.
So Project Group F will be a separate contract coming later?
I hope so, with Brown and Caldwell. They've done great work.
Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to be clear on that.
Yes.
Okay, I believe it was moved and seconded, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So item 522 on the agenda is an action item, and this is the first reading of an ordinance amending Nampa City Code Title 8, Chapter 9, Section 2, changing the schedule of acronyms for the wastewater pretreatment, Section 3, definitions, Section 4, general regulations for pretreatment and discharge, and Section 6, administration of the wastewater permit and requirements of city code. This has been reviewed and approved by legal, and it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance enacted by the Nampa City Council amending Title 8, Chapter 9, Section 892 of the Nampa City Code containing the schedule of acronyms applicable to the city code governing wastewater pretreatment, amending Title 8, Chapter 9, Section 893 containing definitions applicable to the city code governing wastewater pretreatment, amending Title 8, Chapter 9, Section 894 containing general regulations for wastewater treatment, pretreatment and discharge, amending Title 8, Chapter 9, Section 896, containing provisions related to the administration of wastewater permits and requirements for the application and regulations of said permit, providing for an effective date, providing for severability, and repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith.
Okay. Who would like to make this motion? Not that you have to, but.
Mayor Kling, I'll make the motion to adopt the ordinance as read under suspension of rules.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Item 523 on the agenda is an action item. This is to award the bid and authorize the mayor to sign a contract for the street division restroom construction and sewer extension with Wright Brothers. This is a budget reallocation, and I have to say, it is a much-needed project.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Item 524 was a duplicate of 511, so was struck from the agenda. Item 525 is an action item. This is to authorize the staff to move forward with a roundabout design at the Midland Boulevard and Lake Lowell Avenue intersection. And I believe we do need discussion on this. And Jeff, thank you for being here and for waiting.
Mayor and City Council, thank you for your time tonight. So last July, we came to you to proceed on the design for the Lake Lowell and Midland intersections, one of the most needed intersections in the city. It's actually started, the original design started in 2011, I think, and 2010, and they had some right-of-way issues and some legal issues, and it's just been kind of hanging on. So we are going after this intersection again. I think there's a lot of people in the community who are happy about that. So, but tonight we have a kind of a big decision for design authorization moving forward. We originally came to you and we had some general ideas of how much the cost was, and we said, you know, the roundabout's going to be more expensive. And so we have since got into the concept design, and we got into discussions in December and said, well, let's go out and get some public input. So we had an open house, and at the open house, we had this intersection was discussed, the Midland, Iowa intersection was discussed, and then Lake Lowell improvements were discussed. So we got a lot of good input, and there's 100 people that showed up, and I thought it's just what a public meeting should be. We got design input from them. So 67, we took a poll there on what people would want. Would you want a signalized intersection, or would you want a roundabout? And the tide's kind of been changing towards roundabouts as people get more familiar with them. And so at that meeting, 67% of the people said they would prefer roundabout. And so this is a picture of the concept design for the roundabout at that intersection. And I just want to go through some of the benefits of the roundabout, and then there's some challenges with this particular intersection also. So 90% fewer fatality crashes, 75% less serious injury accidents. And so some of the worst accidents we have in the city are T-bone or angle accidents when people blow through a red light and they'll smash into someone going high speed. So roundabouts, you usually have those little angles, and they're sideswiped, and they're low impact and they tend to be very safe. So with that, pedestrian accessibility is safer, generally fit into the aesthetics of the neighborhood a little bit better. I think they improve the quality of neighborhoods as you drive through them. So there's a lot of benefits to a roundabout. What is a challenge here is that this particular one requires a bigger footprint. And so there's a $500,000 increase to a roundabout compared to putting in a signalized intersection at the intersection. Over a period of the life cycle of the intersection, if it's a roundabout, we don't have to replace the signal equipment. We don't have people going out there and timing the signal, and they set $100,000 to $150,000 cost savings over the life of this. So we're talking probably a $350,000 greater input of finances from the city side to build the roundabout. With that, we've discussed it, and we're still considering the roundabout with the safety measures and safety improvements that come along with it. And So we're presenting that for you to consider tonight. We want to proceed with the design of this intersection, and we're proposing a roundabout, but there are some challenges with the funding. So stand for any questions you might have on this.
What's
So-
the price difference?
500,000.
500,000 initially.
Mayor Kling?
So, yes, and so just a reminder, we do need to come to here first, and then I'll acknowledge and go
Come
forward.
to-
Yeah, and you did, thank you. And so it's just a learning.
You just
Yeah.
addressed the mayor before you
Yeah,
speak.
thank you.
You talk about pedestrian access being safer, but when vehicles are not stopping, they're just queuing in and looking for other cars going around it. I don't see how pedestrian crossings can be safer in this type of an arrangement in an urban setting like this. Rural settings, longer stretches of road where you're coming to a roundabout makes sense to me, but this does not. Plus the right-of-way cost of the right-of-way acquisition, the replacement of quite a bit of existing sidewalk, curb and gutter, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I go through this intersection every morning and every evening going home. So I won't be supporting a roundabout. I'd support the signalized intersection.
So just, it's interesting from an informational standpoint, something I just recently learned and didn't know was that this whole topic came up a number of years ago. And I see Michael smiling out there because you were here at the time. And there was a lot of discussion about this. And so for those that in the community that maybe were part of that process, it might be good to address why the change in the recommendation, which has to do with, can you speak to that? Were you here during the process? I know Debbie was, and Mark Hilty was, and Michael was. And I know that there are going to be community members that really remember when we addressed this a number of years ago and now a different recommendation.
Yeah, from my understanding, and there's people that were around at that time, that the roundabout was presented. There was opposition generally on that side of town to roundabouts. There's also roundabouts that were planned on Middleton, and people spoke up. Pretty unfamiliar with roundabouts generally at that time. Also, there was some right-of-way issues, especially on the southeast corner. And so with that, there was some neighbors to the east that came out and not in support of the roundabout. So pretty tough process that everyone went through in that through that project. So that's a little bit of the history. Mayor, I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. I think it's just it's important in this process when we're making a decision on this to understand the history. And then the other question really has to do with many times roundabouts, you've got one roundabout after another. This has got a couple traffic signals and then a roundabout and then a four-way stop. And then it'll go to a roundabout. So, and what's going to happen is it, I should know this, but right now, when you go from Midland and you go 1 mile south, what's the next intersection? Is that Greenhurst?
That's,
Iowa.
Iowa, that's what I was thinking, it's Iowa. So what are we doing at Iowa?
Iowa's planned for a roundabout.
Okay, so this is
And
going
the
to be,
cost for a roundabout there and a signal is comparable so far in our concept design, Mayor.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, and that's really important, that we're following signals, and then if we move to roundabouts, that we're consistent with roundabouts because of the traffic flow.
Mayor, if I could add, so when we originally did our master plan for transportation back in 2011-12, it said that the policy of the city was to look at roundabouts first. And so when we did our follow-up and we updated the transportation master plan, community in our public meetings, they said, well, consider roundabouts. That was one of the comments that was stated during that process. So when we're looking at these roundabouts, most of them are going to have a bigger footprint. So there's going to be a cost discrepancy with all of them, which is part of the reason why we talked in January, because there was that original, we knew there was going to be a cost discrepancy. And so we're kind of presenting that back to you. But just to let you know, if we're going to pursue roundabouts, most of these are going to have some sort of cost with them. That's where we look at, does the benefits of one of these offset that much? And this is a lot especially considering the tax issues that we're up against right now.
So Mayor, if I may, and I hate those stoplights, tell you the truth. I'm a roundabout guy, but I'm probably not going to vote for this roundabout. But my question is this: if we do the stoplight and I talked to Councilman Haverfield about this. It has helped since we have that extra turn lane on Lake Low, but on Midland, as far as south of Lake Low, we have the turn lane, we have one lane, there's a backup like crazy. I don't ever take that, but like at 5 o'clock or whatever, a backup moving north, south. So if we put a light in there, are we putting a second, as far as either can turn right or go straight? Because there is by the storage shed, there is a second lane that you can go into and yield into. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, this is a picture of the concept.
Because a light, I mean, if we're trying to improve traffic flow, I'm sorry, but Lake Low and I mean Midland and Roosevelt has not improved traffic flow by putting a light there. I guarantee you, I've been on that long for many years. A four-way stop was just as good for traffic flow as what that light's doing, because everyone backs up in the left lane and no one goes in the right lane to yield. And so I guess I'm doing my little soapbox here, but if we're going to put a light in there, hopefully there'd be a second lane. Is there any way we can put signage that, hey, right turn or straight? Because I guess people are being so kind here in Napa, but they'll back up 30 cars and won't be anyone in that right lane on road. You know what I'm talking about? Is that making sense, Daniel
So,
and Jeff?
Mayor, Councilman Bruner, as you, at Roosevelt, you see that similar to what we saw on Karcher Road, when you don't have a significant enough distance of 2 lanes after the
Following, I understand.
on the outbound section of the signal, that you don't get utilization of that second lane. This would have a second lane that full length of the storage units up to the drain there.
So how about south of it, though?
South of that,
There is a turn lane, and I hardly, when I am on it a few times, I see no one hardly turning except for
yeah.
Councilman
So
Haverfield.
we would have 2 through lanes heading south as well.
So there'd be 2 lane, there would be, going into that empty property, there would be a second lane to wide, because there are two lanes until you get about 200 yards from that intersection.
Right, so you've got the improvements there that go down to the end of the subdivision there, Arbor or Aspen Grove or whatever. And so you'd have 2 lanes at least that distance, which should be enough to get utilization of that second lane.
It's amazing to me, but even on that, or if you're going on Middleton Road too, even though you have a long distance, people still have a tendency of not utilizing that right lane.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm asking if we're trying to improve traffic flow, traffic lights are not doing this, in my opinion.
Mayor,
Yeah.
with the increase in the residences up by Carriage Hill North, what impact are you expecting that would put on already stressed lights that are not adequately moving traffic when we add all those residences?
Mayor, Councilor, so they have sized, and really, done the design for these with the build-out condition of 20 years out. So we have all the numbers for what they're gonna look like in the future. And it really will, this signal will look a lot like Roosevelt and Midland and Lone Star and Midland. So if you drive through those right now, it's gonna function similar to those. In the future, we're gonna have more traffic, but when they design these, we design them to that build-out condition, and they can definitely handle the capacity for growth in that area. And so could the 2-lane roundabout we had designed.
I have to say, I did a roundabout the other day. Actually, I needed to get, during morning rush hour, going towards Meridian, trying to think about how to do it well. I went through 4 roundabouts. And it was so fast and so excellent because of the way they were staged. I was amazed at how fast that was because I didn't have to stop anywhere. I just flowed through every single roundabout. That was at Amity and Happy Valley, Amity at Robinson, Robinson and Victory, and Idaho Center Boulevard in Franklin.
Mayor,
And it
can I-
was excellent.
And that makes my point. I mean, more of a rural type, longer road, bypass type of a setup makes sense for roundabouts. As many pedestrians as I see crossing all the time, trying to get to the green belt, there's hawk signals on both sides of that to the east and to the north of this intersection, it makes no sense to me that you would have, and especially as people are, they'll be trying to shoot in and around that thing. And those kids that are trying to get to Centennial Elementary or trying to get up to, going north on bikes, or a lot of people walk. It's just, it doesn't make sense to me that you would have traffic that doesn't stop to allow crossover.
Mayor, Council, I see your point. If they're rolling around the corner, one of the things that we do is we put in rapid flashing beacons at the crosswalks here so that that light will be initiated by a push button by the kids or the students, and so.
Still, when you go to the roundabout, you look left to see if there's a car coming, because you don't turn into the roundabout left, you're gonna go right. So the first thing you're looking for is the car that's coming around. You're not looking at people standing possibly on the sidewalks trying to get across as you're coming up to it. So you're either rolling through or you're looking at something other than what you should be looking at, and that's the pedestrians that truly have access. So that's my concern. I just don't think this isn't a safe location for this, but that's my personal opinion.
But Mayor, Councilman Haverfield, yeah, as you're aware, on Lake Low and also Midland, we have those crosswalks right close to that intersection.
The hawk signals, you mean?
The hawk signals
Yeah,
on
just
both.
for the green, and those things will either impede traffic, but what will happen then, if you go with the roundabout, is people will have to go up to the hawk signal to try to get across. They have a protection, because they won't have it at the roundabout. Even though there's a crosswalk, there's nothing, you say that there's a flashing lights, but again, that's just more distractions to me. And Mayor, what you talked about was, again, it makes sense in more in the rural type bypass areas. And 20 years ago, when I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission, that's dating myself, the bypass was meant to be Greenhurst to Middleton Road and Middleton Road North to Karcher. And the roundabouts were to be more on the bypass paths. And that was my understanding all along, that that's what was going to be happening, and it hasn't. And now signals are going in on Middleton Road instead of the roundabouts, which makes more sense that they'd be out there. Yeah. But
So Mayor, I'm sorry to delay this thing, but so are these, I mean, is traffic flow, I'm being my little soapbox here, but is traffic flow really improved with these lights over a four-way stop?
Traffic flow with the roundabout, you'll have.
No, I'm not about roundabout. I love roundabout.
Yeah, so.
I'm concerned about the cost. That's on this
no,
circumstance.
Excuse me, Mayor, Councilor, traffic flow is handled through the signal adequately.
Over a four-way stop. I realize people have trouble seeing three ways. I understand that. Okay. But boy, it still seems to get backed up.
Mayor Kling?
Okay, yes, and then Councilwoman Mutchie.
Oh, thank you. And I drive through both those intersections every day. And I stay away from Lake Lowell and Midland Boulevard, both ways, north and south. And so what I'm thinking of is, per the cost, is $500,000 more, which is going to be paid by impact fees. So even though I like the idea of the roundabout, I really have a difficult time with the roundabout there at Midland and Lake Low. And I don't think you've broken that to me yet as to why we should, other than sideswiping vehicles. It's the pedestrian issue that I worry about. So unless you can come up with something different, I don't know that that's going to work. But I'm open still.
Yeah.
And let's go.
Yeah.
Can we, before you say, do you have a comment that they can respond to all of it at the same time? Let's go ahead and let Councilwoman Mutchie.
We've had to make improvements with roundabouts and pedestrian enhancements with the St. Luke's expansion in Boise. And we are finding that they're safe. There's a lot of pedestrian and bike movement throughout the day. I'm wondering too, you're saying the cost analysis long-term is that it would actually save money to do the roundabout, just not upfront. The life cycle, you said, would save money based on
30 years.
It's over 30 years.
Yes, I'm thinking about this. We are going to have a lot more residences in that area shortly, and driving that every day, you cannot get through those lights. I know you say it moves traffic well, but when we're driving it every day, we're not moving well.
So, Mayor, Council, so I think that there's been a discussion about signal and roundabout, and the bullet point that's probably the most telling in between the two is the 30 to 50% increase in traffic capacity and less delay with a roundabout. And that's, I mean, you put in, you're talking about the four-way stop, it doesn't improve the delay that much. Well, probably true, but I mean, it becomes safer with the signal. You got more controlled intersection. You got pedestrians able to cross it more safely. There's all kinds of reasons, but the delay is what's going to go down because you don't have that, right? People can just go right through. So that's what you're weighing right now. We've outlined all the operational costs for you on what could be saved over a 30-year period, but there's the societal costs of the less delay and the less crashes that we did not monetize for you, and that's really the question.
So
Go ahead.
Well, I have a question. As we listen to all this, the thing that stands out in my mind is we have 2 hawk signals right past this roundabout, which adds a different dynamic than like what I drove through. As much as I love the roundabouts, they didn't have a hawk signal right. You're talking just hundreds of feet, and you've got a hawk signal on Lake Lowell, and you've got a hawk signal on Midland. So when those signals are pushed, and we have a lot of movement on our greenbelt with people wanting to cross, or the hawk signals we're putting on the roundabout, I'm just thinking about even the staging between if we're trying to put a pedestrian crossing with some type of a flashing beacon, and then, I'm not sure, am I right, it's a hawk versus flashing beacon?
Yeah, there's a hawk signals at the
Lowell?
crossing of the Wilson pathway.
On both
And then there'll be
places.
rapid flashing beacons at the intersection itself on the crosswalk.
So what is the research on a roundabout when you've got that type of, that's a stop right there. So you've got all that traffic movement you're trying to push, but you've also got those. But I think you said in Boise it's working well? Do they have the flashing beacons and all that right there? Plus another one right outside of the roundabout area? Maybe or maybe not?
We have, there's,
The excuse me. Mayor.
Okay.
Council, the crossing at Wilson is about 150 people a day. So if you count that, it's going to be triggered a few times an hour. In the peak hour, you might have some issues where that queues back into the roundabout. Where there is a serious traffic issue is look at the hawk on Colorado and 12th Avenue. And we really talked about that because if that backed up into the intersection of Lake Lowell, well, then we'd have issues. So we spent a lot of time on that. With Lake Lowell and with the crossings at Wilson, and we did talk about that during the design, we didn't think the impact was, we thought it would be negligible to the flow of the intersection. At peak hour, that's where they designed this to. That's where, you drive through this any other time of day and it's going to be a smooth drive through it. But in those peak hours is what they're designing this to. And there may be some backup in the intersection on occasion with people crossing Wilson. But 150 people, I think that's over a period of a day, is going to be spread out. Those triggers. You can also, one of the benefits is that you can also time a hawk to a signal. Let you know, that's one of the benefits if they're really close. So in this one, they didn't think that would be an issue
With a roundabout.
with the roundabout.
So Mayor, Greenhurst and Midland, what's planned for that? Or is there any plan at this point?
Greenhurst and Midland, the master plan, I believe it's a roundabout.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
Mayor,
we're going from lights, and then as far as north of town, then we're thinking of south, starting with Lake Lowell
Yeah.
roundabouts, okay.
There'd be 3, right? Iowa, Midland, Iowa, Greenhurst.
Greenhurst.
Could be 3.
Mayor Kling?
Yes.
In light of the hour and the fact that I'm having a hard time concentrating on my screen, I'm going to float a motion to see what happens here. The fact that we're looking at an additional, $500,000 additional cost for a roundabout in light of where we're at budget-wise, I think that it would be more prudent to look at a signalized intersection, which makes more sense to me. And going through the comments that were provided to me anyway, there were several concerns from the Augusta subdivision homeowners as far as the proximity of their main entrance to this roundabout. The Aspen Grove folks I've highlighted on every page where, there was a note of roundabouts. So I'm going to make a motion to deny the request to move forward with the roundabout design at Midland in favor of a signalized intersection.
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion. And I have a question. Are your comments, recent comments, are those from the discussion that took place?
Yeah.
How old are those comments?
They were just sent to me this last week, from January 23rd of
Okay.
2020.
Okay, good.
There's there's like 8 pages, and on every page, I've highlighted all of the comments that were countered a roundabout.
Okay, Councilwoman Levi?
Mayor.
And then Councilman Bauer after that.
Okay. Mayor, thank you. I was at the open house, and I was standing in a group at the roundabout that brought up to the, was it the engineer, I think, that was answering the questions. They were concerned because the design did not make allowance for them to get out of Augusta subdivision. And he assured them that he could make that, and I think there'd be like a narrowing or something, or there'd be a turn lane. I can't remember, and Jeff, perhaps you might have more information on that. But it was something that was doable, if I remember correctly.
Mayor, Councilor, is Augusta is the one to the south, right?
To the east.
It's the east
Oh,
on,
to the east.
on Lake
Okay,
Wolf.
yeah. So yeah, that the left-hand turns out of there was a discussion, and with the roundabout, I believe that we could make that work with the island. They could still take a left
I
out
think
of there.
that's what it was. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Bauer, did you have a comment or question?
It's getting late, but was this in the budget? Or is this something
No.
we already budgeted for or no?
Yeah, Mayor, Councilman, this is in the budget. It's part impact fees and then part city match.
I do have a question. What percentage, does the percentage of impact fee versus city match change between a traffic signal and a roundabout?
Yeah.
It's the same percentage.
It's the same,
Same
okay.
percent, 55% impact fee, 45% city funds on all intersections,
Okay,
no matter, yeah.
thank you.
Yes. And Mayor, when we built Roosevelt and Midland and Lone Star and Midland, it was a comparable percentage-wise with offset between impact fees and street fund.
Thank you for the reminder. It's a really a good reminder. Okay, so, yes.
Jeff, one quick question, maybe it's Jake, but this is in the budget. Am I correct in assuming that if you were to go with the signalized option, that we would spend less of the budget? That the higher value is already in the budget for the roundabout?
In the Mayor Council, in the FY '21 budget, there will be an increase for a portion of the overage, but we're not going to have the project finished by this fiscal year, so there will also be rollover.
What is it, Mayor, so what does that mean?
It means that it would have to add more money to the budget to cover it in next year when we open up next year's budget.
Well, that's very clarifying at this time.
Yeah, and I'm trying to just get in my mind when you said 45, 55. So we're talking about like $200,000 out of the match from our, what's the breakdown of dollar wise? When we say a $500,000 difference, I guess what I'm, not the impact aspect, but the 45%. What's the
Mayor and
difference?
Council, the $500,000 overage is total, so city match would be 45% of that 500,000. And to note,
Around 200,000, then the light or whatever would be. Within
It's actually within budget, so there's no additional fiscal impact
That's, okay.
on the
And-
light.
to Mayor and Council, to Finance Director's point, the budget for next year, it's not necessarily new money, because we'll be using our current pavement management budget to fund this. It's just what projects do we fund, which ones do we not? That's the question that we'll have.
Okay. And here I go prolonging this, Mayor, but, okay, so if we decide with the motion currently is to reject this and put in a light, so does that change what your proposals would be for Iowa and Greenhurst? Since we're adding another light here on Midland?
I think if Mayor, City Council, if you choose a signal, we'll go back to the designer of Iowa and just let them know. But as far as, we've already talked through it, and Iowa was set with a roundabout, even if this had changed to a signal when we were talking during the design process. But certainly we'll revisit that.
Is there any further discussion or questions from council before we go to roll call? Seeing none. I see a whole lot of thinking going on, so I'm pausing. Roll call.
Brunner?
And so as far as your guys' motion, this would be a no to this as far as,
No to the roundabout, but
I know, I
move
mean,
forward on the,
what's being proposed though is a roundabout.
right.
So they're all, the motion was that we deny the roundabout, but instead do a signalized intersection.
Okay, I hate it for the future of travel for Nampa, but because of these budget and the unknown with the state, I'm going to agree with the motion. So I guess that is a no.
No, it's a yes.
Yes, okay, thank you.
So it's yes?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes to the motion.
I hate to say yes, but yes.
No.
Levi?
No.
Bauer?
No.
Rodriguez?
Wow. Yes.
Haverfield?
I made the motion, so yes. So we'll let the mayor make the decision.
Oh, good grief. Oh,
There you go, Mayor.
Only after 11 o'clock do we do this.
thank you, guys. This is a hard one.
Oh, man.
It is a tough one.
Not easy.
It's not that hard.
It is a tough
Yes,
one.
it is.
It's only
Terrible
hard if we
traffic.
don't agree with
Think.
you.
Yeah, it's only hard if we don't agree. You know,
$500,000.
Would agree with me on that. I hate this.
I'm sorry, we need to go home, and I'm just thinking through this. I'm really challenged with it because I think a roundabout's gonna flow better. But we do have a challenge, and that is that we need to get the work done, and we need to move traffic. And I'm sorry, I'm justifying my decision here and thinking out loud. I'm concerned about safety, but you've got safety on both sides. I hope, I think I'm going to say, I got to think about this. It is yes to the motion to deny the roundabout and go with the signalized. And I'm so sorry, guys. I know you're going to shoot me on this one. It's a tough one. But I think because of the budget constraints we're under, I'm trying to be good fiscal stewards. And if we know that we can still move it, I think I'm going to support the motion.
Thank you. Good choice.
No pressure or anything. You know, staff, I apologize, but I'm struggling with it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to
Yeah.
make a good decision.
So Mayor, I'm counting on that second lane and then maybe some type of signage to educate citizens to use that right lane.
I did forget to ask a question as I voted. Middleton and Lake Lowell is what? What is that slated for? Is that a roundabout or a traffic light?
Middleton and Lake Lowell is a signal. That's a signal corridor now.
Okay, so this way it's going to stay a signal. Okay, so at least there's consistency that way.
By
We're
loans.
consistent this way. It's a roundabout? Oh, bummer.
How about Lone Star?
But that's good, though. I mean, that was meant to be the bypass.
Yeah.
Well,
get
but you
traffic
just need to
around.
go, you're going, yeah, but anyway, I voted, so we're done.
Mayor, so isn't all Middleton
My
scheduled for roundabouts?
Mayor, sorry about that. So they, it's getting late. So we did a concept design for that roadway, and they laid out 2 roundabout designs. So a roundabout is, the concept design is done for that intersection. I apologize.
So it is a roundabout?
Yeah.
Okay.
By committee at this point.
You sure? Okay.
The vote is done.
Thank you.
And so-
Thank you.
Thank you, sorry. I hope I did.
I know, well, I don't even go that way.
Item 526 on the agenda is to authorize a budget amendment for the street division to proceed with the purchase of the asphalt emulsion trailer utilizing an informal bid process for the, and this is an FY20 budget amendment.
So moved.
So Jean, second.
Sorry.
She has a quiet.
You know, this is an interesting one because it is a budget amendment, but actually, there's a 3-year ROI on this. One of the challenges with the roundabout was it's a 30-year ROI. It's a long ROI. This is a 3-year ROI. And the reason we're pushing this forward is to be able to capture this equipment now while it's available to use this summer. And when you have a 3-year ROI, I think that's pretty good on an investment. So
Do you need a second?
I think it was
Maybe
moved
I
and
have.
seconded,
Oh,
and
oh,
actually,
okay.
that was discussion. I'm sorry, does anybody have additional discussion? Okay, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Machi.
Mucci? Wow.
Machi.
You get it right every other time.
Go home. Okay, item 527 is an action item to authorize the staff to proceed with the advertisement of requests for qualifications to develop a National Environmental Policy Act and environmental assessment for the State Highway 45 realignment, and then also authorize the mayor and public works director to sign a task order with HDR Engineering for an I-84 right-of-way swap analysis, and this is budgeted in the FY20 budget and has been reviewed and approved by legal.
So move.
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
Yes, Mayor. Jeff, could you just kind of give me an overview of this? Because I'm thinking about the discussions that happened maybe 7 to 10 years ago about someday this area turning into a thoroughfare, taking traffic out of downtown. And so I just want to make sure I understand exactly what's going on here.
Mayor, Councilor. So in 2009, they started conversations about realigning State Highway 45 to reduce traffic in the downtown area, also to reduce delay for vehicles and freight traffic. Right now, we have beat trucks rolling through downtown. So they did a study in 2014. They looked at a number of options, dozens of options actually, and they came out with a preferred option, and that is on 12th. Cutting over on 7th and then tying into Northside. This estimate for that work right now is around $30 million. So we did a cost-benefit analysis this last year. We found out that the savings for delay for vehicles over 20 years is $1 billion. So ITD is very interested in this project, hearing especially that number. The next step is to get a NEPA analysis, which is an environmental. They'll evaluate multiple factors, and they will look at the alignment also, and that's what you're authorizing tonight to start that process. And we need that to get federal funding. That's the first start, is that NEPA. There is also some proposals out there in order to pay for this 30 million, offset that, and if you can see, this kind of puts an ending point to I-84B, which would be Caldwell Boulevard, that there would be a swap for Caldwell Boulevard. Everyone, is this red? Green? Okay. Everything that's green would be swapped for this. And I'm taking blue, that's blue. Right? I got it? All right, winner. All right. Colorblind engineer. Yeah, I wasn't an architect.
Drink some decaf, will you?
And so we're gonna look at that in the other contract with HDR in this to see the impacts to the city on taking over that much infrastructure, and then the cost benefits of actually being able to pay for a $30 million project, which is an opportunity factor, because that would be very difficult to come up with 30 million for that realignment. So the swap might be necessary to push this forward.
Thank you.
And you are taking into consideration and researching the current condition of Garrity Boulevard, and how long before all of that information will come back to us as we work through this process, correct?
Absolutely. The condition of the roadway, sidewalks, all the utilities, the things we're taking over, for sure.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, so did we have a motion? We
Bruner
did.
and Haverfield.
Oh, thank you. Okay, is there any further discussions or questions? Roll call?
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bruner?
Yes, okay.
So we still have unfinished business. So item 7.1 is an action item, and this is the first reading of ordinance for modification of the First Amendment to a development agreement between North Nampa LLC and the City of Nampa that was recorded on 12/29/2017.
Madam
Amid-
Mayor,
Yes.
may I say something before you, or after your, sorry, my thing fell off.
Yes. Yes.
Rookie.
I will pause. Yes,
I
Councilman
just want
Bauer.
to say real quick, I'm going to be abstaining from this vote because this was before I came to office. I wasn't at the public hearing. And I feel like limited knowledge, I don't feel comfortable, voting on something that I have limited knowledge of when I wasn't sworn in office, so I'll be abstaining from this vote.
What about 7.2?
I was here for that.
You were here for that one, and I guess those are the only two.
Mayor Kling,
Yes.
was 528
528 was
taken off?
taken off.
Okay,
Yes. And on the consent agenda,
okay.
left on the consent.
Sorry for the interruption. Wasn't sure if I was before or after.
You're fine.
Still learning.
Yeah, you're good. Thank you.
It's
Thank you.
11:30, you can do whatever you want.
Okay, so, Debbie, let me ask you a question. Are you going to read everything that's in here in your?
It looks like it.
Okay, so we're just going to move forward with the first reading of this ordinance, and Debbie will cover all the information related to it.
An ordinance enacted by the Nampa City Council modifying for the second time the annexation and zoning development agreement to which a portion of that certain real property commonly known as the Lost River Subdivision, Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, lying approximately 1/4 mile east of Canada Road on the north side of Cherry Lane and comprising approximately 7.96 acres, more or less, is subject described in ordinance number 3522, approved on December 5th, 2005, and recorded on January 5th, 2006, as instrument number 2006-00606, records of Canyon County, Idaho, as amended by that certain amendment to the development agreement described in ordinance number 4354, approved on December 18th, 2017, and recorded on December 29th, 2017, as instrument number 2017-056504, records of Canyon County, Idaho, so to allow for a mix of fourplexes and single-family attached town homes rather than a mix of fourplexes and commercial lots on the portion of the property zoned as GB 2, and amending Exhibit C, conditions of approval as necessary, directing the city planning director to alter the use and area map accordingly, providing for effective date, providing for severability, and repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith.
And it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Bruner?
Yes.
Mucci? Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bowers abstaining. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
point of order. Should Councilwoman Mucci, now you guys have got me all messed up, I'm saying, be abstaining from 7.1 and 7.2 since she just took office and the public hearings were on November 18th of 2019 and January 21st of 2020?
We could actually go ahead and do that, yes. So we would just pull her vote, yes. Okay, item 7.2 is an action item. This is the first reading of ordinance for annexation and zoning to light industrial at 8626 Birch Lane for warehouses. And this is a 3.02 acre subdivision for Phil, or, excuse me, not subdivision, but parcel for Phil Horton. And it is requested to pass under suspension of rules, and on this one, we'll have 2 abstentions.
So is Bowers going to abstain?
No, I'm sorry, 1, because Bauer is not, yeah. Thank you.
An ordinance determining that certain lands commonly known as 8626 Birch Lane, comprising approximately 3.02 acres more or less, lay contiguous to the city limits of the city of Nampa, county of Canyon, state of Idaho, and that said land should be annexed into the city of Nampa, Idaho, as part of the IL zone, declaring that said lands by proper legal description as described below be part of the city of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, directing the city engineer and planning and zoning director to add said property to the official maps of the city of Nampa, Idaho, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict with herewith, providing for an effective date, and directing the clerk of the city of Nampa to file a certified copy of the ordinance and the map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, state of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63215.
Who would like to?
So moved.
Second.
And that
Under
is,
suspension of
Under
rules.
suspension of rules.
thank you. Discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi? Yes. Bauer?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Okay, Section 8 are pending ordinances that are postponed due to lack of supporting documentation, and we are going to adjourn. And I would stand for a motion to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 742061I to engage in communications with a representative of a public agency's risk manager or insurance provider to discuss the adjustment of a pending claim or prevention of a claim imminently likely to be filed.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call. Yeah, roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Munchy?
Yes.
Levi? Yes. Bauer?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Michael, where are you going?
Okay,